Chapter 992. I don't care. A few minutes ago, Yi Zichen sat on a round disk, soaked in blood. The overflowing spiritual pressure of the heavenly lightning also affected the sacred beast clansman in the middle of setting up the four beasts formation. Xia Kiki, who was in the four beasts formation, looked up. When she saw Yi Zichen's situation, her expression immediately turned terrible. "Brother Zichen!" Xia Kiki shouted frantically from within the formation. The other clansmen looked at the wheel as well, but their focus wasn't on Yi Zichen, who was undergoing tribulation. "All of you die." Not far from Yi Zichen's disc, the Beast Region's experts had transformed into enormous black dragons. Even the unfathomable White Emperor had no choice but to avoid them. Judging from the current situation, their situation was not optimistic. "We need to hurry up." Xiaoyingda frowned. It was only a matter of time before Bai Di and the others were defeated. When the time came, the Black Dragon would bring the elites of the demon race over, and they would be annihilated. "Brother Zichen." Xia Kik's gaze passed right through the Beast Region experts fighting a bloody battle against Black Dragon. There was only one person in the distance. Yi Zichen. "Kiki, don't just stand there." The four beasts formation had to be of one mind, and Xia Kiki was one of the four people chosen by the Dragon Clan to stand in the center of the formation. Just now, all the spiritual power they passed over was repelled back. Sorry. What the Sacred Race clansmen didn't expect was that Xia Kiki, who was standing in the center of the spirit formation, actually bowed deeply towards them. She cut off her connection to the four beasts formation and hurried over to Yi Zichen's location. "Big Brother Zichen, wait for me. I'm coming to save you." Xia Kiki bit her lip hard and sped towards Yi Zichen. Xia Hua, who was tangling with Black Dragon, saw her, then glanced towards the four beasts formation. "Coco." Sorry. Xia Kiki covered her ears to avoid Xia Hua's angry rebuke. She knew that her actions might create an irreversible situation, but she couldn't bear to watch Yi Zichen die in front of her. "My lovely mount, you actually have the time to be distracted while fighting with me?" Bang! Black Dragon's arm swung viciously at Xia Hua's body. Worried about the four beasts formation, Xia Hua fell heavily to the ground in the distance. The dragon's scales on his body fell off, and fresh blood flowed from his wounds. Cuckoo. Xia Hua, who had landed on the ground, stared at Xia Kiki. "Things will turn out this way. Kiki, your stubbornness has harmed everyone." Xia Kiki's shoulders couldn't stop trembling. Even though there was a huge explosion behind her, she didn't dare to look back. She simply covered her ears and apologized repeatedly, then rushed towards Yi Zichen. Boom! Just then, another bolt of lightning struck down from the void. Seeing this scene, Xia Kiki bit her lips and took out a bracelet from her bosom and held it in her hand. In an instant, surging spiritual energy poured into her body. She was only a sky immortal, but in just a few breaths, she had reached the strength needed to undergo the tribulation. "Come here." Xia Kiki, who was clutching the bracelet, bit her lips and shouted towards the sky. What made her pleasantly surprised was that the bolt of heavenly lightning actually landed on her. Oh, she had forcibly raised her power and had not refined it at all. On top of that, she had no idea how strong the lightning tribulation was, so she didn't put up any defenses for herself. Her only goal was to attract the heavenly lightning. She almost spat out a mouthful of blood, but she forcefully swallowed it. He suppressed the roiling blood in his chest, transformed into a golden dragon, and flew above Yi Zichen's head. Kiki. Earlier, when Yi Zichen saw Xia Kiki draw lightning for him, he was already somewhat confused. Who would have thought that she would actually block the top of her head? "Don't mess around. I'm going through a tribulation right now. It's not something you can handle. Hurry up and leave." "Big Brother Zichen, I'm undergoing tribulation too." Only then did Yi Zichen notice that Xia Kiki's current strength was actually on par with his. Passing the tribulation. How could she be undergoing tribulation? Moreover, she should be in the four beasts formation now. Now that she was here, what about the four beasts formation? However, the current situation didn't allow him to think too much. He shouted out for Xia Kik's safety. Even if you're going to undergo tribulation, don't do it here. If we do it together, the lightning's power won't be as simple as 1 + 1. Undergoing tribulation was heaven-defying to begin with. If two people underwent tribulation together, the heavens would be displeased. What's more, someone was maliciously controlling Yi Zichen's tribulation. If Yi Zichen underwent tribulation alone, they might not even have an excuse to fall to the 9th level. But now that Xia Kiki was here, they had an excuse. They might even use this excuse to send 100 bolts of lightning, 200 bolts. When that happened, it wouldn't be just him. Even Xia Kiki would die here with him. It's fine, don't worry. I'm a golden dragon of the dragon race. My defenses are pretty strong. Don't worry, little friend. Watch as Big Sister takes you through tribulation together. Xia Kiki replied in an extremely flippant tone, but before she could even finish speaking, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck her. It was just as Yi Zichen had said. If they underwent tribulation together, it wouldn't be as simple as 1 + 1. This bolt of lightning was several times thicker than the ones before. It was fast and fierce, and it landed squarely on Xia Kik's back. Kiki. Lightning rained down on Xia Kik's dragon body. After a long while, Yi Zichen finally heard Xia Kik's relaxed tone. Do you see that? When Big Sister says I'll take it, I'll take it. Just wait here obediently. However, she wasn't as simple as she made it sound. Yi Zichen, who sat beneath her, clearly saw her golden scales fall off her body and a pool of dragon blood drip from her wounds. Kiki, stop messing around. Our tribulation isn't something you can withstand. Besides, why are you suddenly undergoing tribulation now? What about the four beasts formation? Xia Kiki hovered above Yi Zichen's head in silence. After a while, she replied in a trembling voice. Chapter 993. Chapter 993. Destruction Boom. The divine tribulation didn't stop. Xia Kiki, who'd transformed into a golden dragon, hovered above Yi Zichen's head and used her dragon body to block the tribulation's bolts of heavenly lightning. Her scales fell from her body, and fresh blood flowed down her body. Roar! After enduring several bolts of heavenly lightning, Xia Kiki, who was hovering in the air, suddenly fell from the sky. She didn't know how powerful tribulation lightning was, but she couldn't deny that she couldn't take it anymore. Even though she was a golden dragon, after being baptized by several bolts of lightning, she couldn't take it anymore. The lightning poured into her body, numbing her senses and nerves. She couldn't take it anymore. Her consciousness gradually blurred, and her body was so numb that she couldn't control it any longer. Even so, just as she was about to land on top of Yi Zichen, she forcefully steadied herself through sheer willpower. She understood that she couldn't fall. Yi Zichen was right beneath her. She treated him like an infant in swaddling clothes, using her body to block the lightning for him. While she was falling, Yi Zichen was able to see Xia Kik's injuries completely. 2 or 3 of her scales had fallen off. Without the protection of dragon's scales, they were terrifying wounds. Blood flowed down along his torn flesh, and there were even charred spots around his torn flesh that were caused by the heavenly thunder. Kiki, don't continue. Yi Zichen painfully told her to come down. He really didn't know what on earth he had done to deserve so many people. There was no reason for them to treat him like this. Suyun was like this, and so was Xia Kiki. I won't, roared Xia Kiki in golden dragon form. At that moment, another bolt of lightning fell from the sky. It seemed to be deliberately landing on her wounds. Roar! Xia Kiki, who'd been circling above Yi Zichen this entire time, suddenly landed on the disc formed of spiritual formation. However, as she landed, she intentionally twisted her body to avoid Yi Zichen. Bang! The golden dragon collided with the disc, and Xia Kiki returned to her human form. Her back was already soaked in blood, and her face was completely pale. She lay lifelessly on the disc, unmoving. Yizichin gnashed his teeth and crawled over to her. Kiki, Kiki. Yizichin called out Xia Kik's name anxiously. When he saw the gaping wound on Xia Kik's back, he continuously punched the disc. God race! The God race! Yizichin glared at the sky with bloodshot eyes. Please don't let me get the chance to go to the God realm. If I do, he must destroy the Xiao family. It's really a tragic drama. A faint laughter rang out from the void. Not long after, the black dragon, which had turned into 100,000 feet long, grabbed the blue disc with both hands and revealed a huge head. Yizichin's heart trembled. If Black Dragon attacks us now, forget it. No matter what, he was going to die anyway. However, Hei Long didn't attack them. Instead, he looked at them with eyes the size of ordinary houses and smiled faintly. No matter how infatuated that girl is, I won't kill you for her sake. Besides, I have to thank her. If it weren't for her, I really don't know how to break the four beasts formation. Boom. At that moment, another bolt of heavenly lightning fell. Black Dragon glanced at it indifferently, then reached out and blocked it. TCH, it's not weak at all. I won't kill you here, but whether or not you can survive the divine tribulation will depend on your own luck. Right, let me remind you. This divine tribulation is for 3 people now. Yizichin laughed mockingly, then turned to leave. His eyes flashed with an inexplicable light of despair. He wouldn't kill him. It wasn't that Black Dragon was arrogant. Rather, he'd planned it all out. There was no way they could survive the divine tribulation. Their previous divine tribulations had already left them in such a state. What's more, Black Dragon, a Sky Supreme who'd never experienced tribulation before, was joining them. Is this the end? Yizichin let out a weak groan as the golden longsword circled around him and trembled. I don't want to give up, but I don't have a choice now, do I? The golden longsword trembled violently once more, but Yizichin simply smiled at him, then looked up at the sky, which was already crashing down with lightning. This was the end. In the main hall of the profound pavilion, Xianji sat with a dark expression on her face. At this moment, a middle-aged man with a mustache walked in from outside the hall. Your Highness! Gather everyone. As long as they're in the God world, tell them to return immediately. Xianji's face was filled with a terrifying, murderous aura. The mustached man frowned and said, What are you doing here? Your Highness, we're going to the Xiao family. With that, Xianji disappeared from her seat. The mustached man remained in the hall, carefully savoring Xianji's words and tone. In an instant, an indescribably grave expression appeared on his face. Your Highness, is this a declaration of war? Thinking of this, the mustached man did not dare to delay. He took out a jade slip from his bosom and crushed it. The jade slip transformed into countless spiritual birds that circled around him. Then, the mustached man said, Everyone's back. They're all back. Her Highness is fighting with the Xiao family. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit birds around him all burrowed into the spatial gaps and disappeared. He also frowned and lightly tapped his finger, disappearing from the main hall. That silly girl, how dare she? Xianji stood in the air, her face filled with worry. Although she'd already returned to the God realm, her concern for Xia Kiki hadn't lessened in the slightest. Just now, she'd actually seen Xia Kiki resist Yizichin's divine tribulation. Was that something she could resist? Forcefully raising her spiritual power to the point of tribulation? That bracelet wasn't meant for her to use. Who dares take to the skies in the capital? Hurry up and... When the Imperial Guards saw the newcomer's face, they forcefully swallowed the words at the tip of their tongues. Then, they heard Xianji's furious rebuke. Cram! The guards swallowed and retreated to the side. Only after Xianji had gone far away did the guards pat their chests and speak with lingering fear in their hearts. We almost lost our lives. The other royal guards nodded in agreement. We were so close. Look at that murderous aura. I wonder who it was that dared provoke her. Chapter 994. Begging? The Imperial Shao family. When the Imperial Guard said this, the other Imperial Guards froze. Could it be? Just as one of the guards was about to speak, the person next to him covered his mouth and spoke in a low voice with a sinister look on his face. Do you want to die? The Imperial Guard gulped, then heard the other guards say, Hurry up and notify the God Emperor. Hurry up and notify the God Emperor. Lady Providence and Emperor Zhao's affairs aren't something we can interfere with. Royal City. The Imperial Shao family, a family that had existed since the beginning of the God Realm, was located in the western part of Royal City. Their manor occupied an area of 1,000,000 acres, and their gates were extravagantly decorated. 2 imposing statues of thunder lions stood in front of the gates. The words, Shao family, written on their gilded signboard had been personally bestowed by the God Emperor. It was a place of boundless glory and splendor. Boom! A beautiful figure suddenly landed in front of his house. When she landed, she even shattered the tiles in front of his house. Who dares act so impudently in front of the Shao family? The guards in front of the residence scolded them arrogantly. Although they were mere guards of the Shao family, even high officials and dignitaries had to be polite to them when they encountered them. In ancient times, even a prime minister and a soldier of the central government were considered 9th-rank officials. They were Imperial Shao family guards, so their status wasn't low either. In the past, if they'd run into someone like this, it meant they'd earned some money. As long as they scolded them a little and made things difficult for them, they'd easily rake in tens of thousands of shinbi. But this time, they'd run into a tough opponent. Dong. The guard who'd just spoken sensed a wave of energy attack him. The guards were the face of the Shao family. Although they were arrogant, they still had some strength. Shao Chun dodged to the side, but the energy landed on the gate of the Shao family's mansion, smashing it into pieces. How dare you? How dare you attack someone in the Shao family and destroy their gates? It seemed this person was tired of living. At that moment, he felt someone tug at him. Then he saw his brothers kneeling on the ground. At this moment, he finally saw the face of the person in front of the mansion. Thud. The domineering guard's knees buckled and he knelt to the ground. Greetings. Greetings, Lady Providence. Greetings, Lady Providence. He really wanted to slap himself in the face a few times. Just who had given him the gall to speak to Lady Providence of the profound pavilion like that? Tell Xiao Yan to come see me. Xuanji had important matters to attend to, so he couldn't be bothered to bicker with these people. Just as the guards were about to go look for Xiao Yan, he saw a youth carrying ancient tomes by Xiao Yan's side. When he saw the guards kneeling on the ground and the broken gate, he frowned unhappily. How could he, a guard of the Shao family, kneel to someone from the profound pavilion? Even if the God Emperor came, they would have to stand with their backs straight, much less a mere Xianji. As for the gate, it was the face of the Shao family. If Xianji destroyed it just like that, wasn't that a slap in the face to the Shao family? Lady Xianji, you really have quite the temper, but why did you come to the Shao family to vent your anger? What, does the Empress think that my Shao family is easy to bully? The former head of the Shao family, Shao Ting, no longer cared about worldly affairs. Now that Xiao Yan was the head of the Shao family, he had to act tough. Xiao Yan, you've come just in time. I've come to ask you to do something for me. Ask you to do it? Her tone brooked no argument. She'd always done things this way. If she wanted someone to do something, that person had to do it. Even if the Shao family was an imperial clan, it was the same. There was no way she was going to negotiate with them. Lady Providence, this isn't your profound pavilion. This is the Shao family, an imperial clan. Watch your words. Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes and snorted, refusing to budge an inch. But it's rare for you to ask someone to do something for you. For the sake of the God Emperor, I'll give you some face. Then, please tell me what you'd like my Shao family to do. As Xuanji sneered, but she didn't explain. Your clan is currently undergoing divine tribulation, right? In that case, a girl named Xia Kiki should be undergoing tribulation right now. I demand that you immediately wipe away her god realm. Lady Providence, since when did my Shao family's tribulation become your concern? You've gone too far, haven't you? Xiao Yan smiled calmly in response. Although this was just an ordinary conversation, this was a contest of face between two factions. If he replied weakly, he'd lose face for the Shao family. Wipe it away or not? Xianji narrowed her eyes. Whoosh. At that moment, the mustached man who'd appeared in the profound pavilion's main hall appeared as well. As soon as he landed, he sensed that something was wrong, and his heart began to pound wildly. He'd guessed right. The Empress really was going to cause trouble for the imperial clans. In the end, Xianji was still slightly superior in terms of aura. Xiao Yan had only recently become head of the Shao family. Compared to someone like Xianji, who'd been famous for a long time, he was still a bit immature. But how could he allow himself to be defeated in front of so many of his clansmen? Xianji, if you're asking for help, you should look like you're asking for help. If you talk nicely, I can wipe away that person's divine tribulation for you. It's just divine tribulation. Whether to wipe it away or not is up to us to decide. However, what I want is your attitude. Xiao Yan thought his words were very unyielding, but little did he know that his answer had already fallen into disarray. Ask for help? I couldn't be bothered to talk to you before, but I didn't think you'd be so insistent. I'm afraid you're overthinking things. Where did you get the idea that I'm asking for help? A faint smile surfaced on Xianji's face as she spoke in a tone that left no room for doubt. I'm asking you to wipe it away, understand? Even if you don't want to, you have to wipe away this divine tribulation. Impudent! Xiao Yan, who'd been calm all this time, finally revealed his anger. Xianji, don't go too far. I'm giving you face, but don't push your luck. I'm telling you right now, you can't wipe away this divine tribulation. Is that so? Xianji shook her head disdainfully when she saw Xiao Yan's furious expression. It's such a pity that the position of head of the family was passed on to you. If your sister were here, she'd do 10,000 times better than you. I know you want to establish your authority in front of your clansmen, but bearing isn't determined by whose voice is louder. I don't need you to tell me that, snorted Xiao Yan. Of course I don't care about you. Even if someone has to discipline you, it should be the Lightning Emperor. Xianji smiled playfully, then took a step back. At this moment, there was a continuous stream of people flying through the air above the capital city, landing behind her. In an instant, several hundred people from the profound pavilion who had come to inquire about her appeared behind her. Chapter 995. Force your Y. As soon as she spoke, the members of the profound pavilion mobilized their divine power. Boundless auras converged on the Shao family and bore down on them. Lady Xianji, you must think this through. This is the Shao family. Xiao Yan's expression froze. His meaning was clear. This was the Shao family's territory. In terms of manpower, the Shao family wasn't afraid of them. The Shao family members, who'd long since sensed something was wrong, gathered behind Xiao Yan. The Shao family's glory was inviolable. If they wanted to attack the Shao family's lightning pool, not even the God Emperor would be able to. Swords were drawn. Boundless auras clashed fiercely in the sky. Before long, the people of the capital noticed what was happening with the Shao family. Look, someone's causing trouble for the Shao family. The Shao family stood at the pinnacle of the god race's pyramid. Although they usually conducted themselves fairly well, their guards were rather domineering. However, it wasn't easy to watch someone cause trouble for the Shao family. The citizens of the capital were more than happy to watch the show. Just who's so blind as to dare cause trouble for the Shao family? Some people in the crowd said similar things. The Shao family had existed for countless eras, and its power was deeply rooted. They controlled the lightning pool of all races. Even the God Emperor had to give them face when he visited. Finding trouble with the Shao family was simply courting death. Hey look! Isn't that the profound pavilion's Lady Xianji? Behind her stands the Xianji 16 generals. A sharp-eyed person pointed it out and immediately turned to look. It really is her. When he said this, even he couldn't quite believe it himself. Look at that mustachioed man. Isn't that Mr. 8 Characters, who's always by Lady Xianji's side? And that brawny red-haired man, isn't that the God of Strength? Really? Some people in the crowd didn't believe him. After all, the Profound Pavilion and the Shao family were two major factions in the capital. All along, these two forces had never interfered with each other. Why did they suddenly start fighting? Quite a few people couldn't help but shuffle forward to confirm whether or not the Profound Pavilion was really causing trouble for the Shao family. When they ascertained that it was the Profound Pavilion, a boom went off in their heads. Was the world going to change? News of the mysterious pavilion taking the initiative to provoke the Shao family instantly spread. In less than a quarter of an hour, a large crowd had gathered near the Shao family. A direct clash between two peak-level forces might only happen once in their lives. Why aren't they fighting yet? One of the onlookers spoke up, but before he could finish his sentence, he heard someone next to him say in disdain, "Do you think it's a fight between two kids? These are two forces that represent the two peak powers of the royal capital. Fight. Do you think it's so easy to fight?" The surrounding people all nodded in agreement, causing the person who was reprimanding to remain silent. However, he was not the only one. Many people present were clenching their fists and shouting for them to hurry up and fight. "Your Highness, have you thought it through?" As he watched more and more people gather behind him, Xiao Yin regained his confidence and smiled calmly. He was betting that Xianji wouldn't dare attack the Shao family. No matter what, the Shao family was an imperial family. Even the God Emperor had to give them some face. Furthermore, he had far more people than the Profound Pavilion. If they fought, the Shao family would definitely have the upper hand. Right now, he was just waiting for Xianji to admit defeat. When the time came, he'd be the first person in history to make Xianji admit defeat. He'd gain face and prestige. But he was wrong. If it were anyone else, they might actually admit defeat, but the one standing before him was the Profound Pavilion's Lady Providence. "OL5, you can break it, right?" Xianji retreated a few steps, then stopped next to a bare-chested, red-haired man in black shorts. The God of Strength. He was one of Xianji's 16 divine generals. His strength was far greater than that of the Yao race's barbarian bull clan. "Big sister, are you really going to attack the Shao family? Do you want me to admit defeat?" Xianji glanced at him coolly. "Of course not," said the 2-meter-tall God of Strength with a disdainful laugh. "The puny Shao family isn't worthy of making you admit defeat." "Then what nonsense are you blabbering about? Break down their gates." Xianji pointed at the Shao family's gates. The God of Strength nodded and took a step forward. Boundless divine power poured out of his body, and his arms, already as thick as a person's thighs, instantly swelled to the thickness of a man's waist. "Xianji, how dare you?" Xiao Yin was at a loss. He never would have guessed that Xianji would actually dare attack the Shao family in the capital. "I wouldn't dare." "Why wouldn't I dare?" "OL5, don't listen to his bullshit. Tear down the gates." Xianji crossed her arms and snorted like a gangster boss. The God of Strength didn't hesitate either. He punched. Boom. The gates collapsed. The Shao family's towering gates were smashed to smithereens by the God of Strength's punch. The surrounding walls collapsed as well, and the plaque the God Emperor had bestowed upon them crashed to the ground. "Xianji." Xiao Yin barely dodged the God of Strength's punch. When he saw the destroyed gates and walls, his expression was as dark as still water. She really dared attack the Shao family's lightning pit. After destroying the gates, Xianji didn't hesitate at all. She shouted at her subordinates, and they all charged towards the Shao family's lightning pit as if they'd been injected with chicken blood. Stop them! Xiao Yan didn't even need to give the order. The Shao family had already begun fighting the profound pavilion. Holy shit, they're really fighting! How exciting! They're both too irrational. How can these two peak-level factions actually fight? As the Shao family and profound pavilion clashed, the onlookers finally began to cry out in the depths of their hearts. Some of them just wanted to watch the show, but of course there were also rational people who thought the Shao family and profound pavilion lacked consideration. But no matter what they thought, the profound pavilion and the Shao family were fighting. Lady Providence, aren't we being a little too? Of the profound pavilion's people, only the mustached man didn't go up. Not only did he not attack, but he even ran over to Xianji's side to try and comfort her. The God Emperor is in the capital. I'll fight whoever I want. Why are you just standing there? Hurry up and fight. Lady Providence. Mr. 8 Characters was one of the more rational people. He was loyal to Xianji, but that didn't mean he supported her every command. Moreover, their profound pavilion did indeed need a rational person like him to exist. However, Xianji didn't give him a chance to think rationally. Then I think you're asking for a beating. She glanced at him coolly, but the mustached man instantly swallowed his words. He rolled up his sleeves, put his hands on his hips, and cursed angrily at the Shao family. Chapter 996. The Veiled Woman. Even though Xianji's subordinates were far inferior to the Shao families, they were like tigers and wolves. Her 16 divine generals, in particular, viewed the Shao family as nothing. No one dared to stop them. Xianji, are you declaring war on the Shao family? Xiao Yan stood about 5 meters away from Xianji. As he listened to the rumbling in the courtyard, his shoulders trembled uncontrollably. His expression was as dark as still water. An indifferent smile appeared on Xianji's face. She shrugged and arched her brows. Is this a declaration of war? I'm already attacking your Shao family. Then don't blame me for not remembering our past friendship. Crackle. Thick thunderclouds suddenly appeared in the clear sky, and purple lightning surged in the thunderclouds. Boom. In an instant, Shao Yan's half-step ruler strength burst forth from his body. He'd become head of the Shao family not only because he was the Thunder Emperor's only son, but also because he possessed absolute power. No one dared defy him. If you set aside Shao Yan's indecisive personality, he could actually be considered a legend among the god race. His mother had been pregnant with him for 3 years. When she was born, she was well versed in astronomy, geography, and the arts of divination. He became an immortal at 9 and a god at 15. His strength had risen to unprecedented heights. If the Four Directions Palace found a new freak, his record would remain unbroken. Now, he was the closest to becoming a ruler among the younger generation. It could be said that he'd been the center of attention for his entire life. Half-step ruler. Among the younger generation, you're the most dazzling, but in the end, you're still only half a step. Boom! Xianji released spiritual pressure several times stronger than Shao Yan's. Everything within 10,000 kilometers was enveloped by her might. The distant onlookers' eyelids twitched when they sensed this spiritual pressure. Was this the power of a peak-level faction? When Xianji's spiritual pressure appeared, Shao Yan couldn't help but take a step back. He was indeed a half-step ruler, but just as Xianji said, a half-step ruler was still only half a step. Given your current state, you're not fit to be my opponent. I don't want to bully the weak. Let Lei Ting come. Who knows, he might be able to exchange a few blows with me. She arched her brows disdainfully at Shao Yan, but to Shao Yan, this was an enormous insult. Now that I'm in charge of the Shao family, there's no need for father to show up personally. Ruler, this emperor also wants to see just how big the gap is between a half-step ruler and a true ruler. As soon as he finished speaking, the heavenly lightning in the sky rumbled down. Several lightning snakes appeared around Xiao Yan, and the illusory image of an ancient god of thunder wielding a giant hammer appeared behind him. Then go ahead and try. Xianji didn't even put up the most basic of defenses. In the face of Xiao Yan's all-out attack, she stretched lazily and patted her yawning mouth. Stop! A veiled woman in a white dress floated down from the sky. She stood between Xianji and Xiao Yan. Hey, who is that person? Some of the onlookers with sharp eyes noticed the woman and pointed at the people around them. The others also looked over, but they all shook their heads, indicating that they had never seen it before. She actually dared to persuade the Xiao family to fight with the Profound Pavilion. This woman's status is definitely not low, someone in the crowd said. Could it be Her Highness Lu Qing of the Four Directions Palace? Someone else asked, but his words were immediately rejected by the others. Stop bullshitting. Her Highness Lu Qing belongs to the Four Directions Palace. Why would she come to the royal capital to persuade the two families to fight? Besides, I've never heard of Her Highness Lu Qing interacting with either faction. If you're talking about the Lord of Seven Stars, that's possible. Rumor has it that the Lord of Seven Stars has a close relationship with Lady Providence. Everyone had their own opinions. In the minds of the onlookers, this woman had a different identity. However, no matter what they guessed, at least her appearance stopped Xianji and Xiao Yan from fighting. I didn't expect to see you here so soon. Xianji crossed her arms and smiled calmly. The veiled woman nodded at her. Forget it, I'll give you face. After a brief moment of hesitation, Xianji sent a transmission to the members of the Profound Pavilion in her sea of consciousness. Before long, the Profound Pavilion retreated from the Xiao family and stood behind her. As they retreated, the people of the Xiao family chased after them aggressively. However, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Xiao family had suffered a huge loss. Stop! Xiao Yan waved his hand and calmed his clansmen down, then frowned at the woman. Sis, why are you here? Xiao Yan couldn't expose the woman's identity, so he could only secretly transmit to the veiled woman. Xianji knows you. Have you met before? Xiao Yan, don't spout nonsense. A reprimanding voice rang out in Xiao Yan's sea of consciousness. You were far too reckless this time. Do you know the Profound Pavilion's status? Do you know the Xiao family's status? How dare you start a fight like a commoner? Have you ever thought about the impact this will have on the Xiao family? What about the future harmony between our two factions? She did it, snorted Xiao Yan. Takes two hands to clap. Don't try to quibble. The veiled woman shook her head calmly at Xiao Yan. Fortunately, I arrived in time. If I'd arrived just a little later and the Profound Pavilion really did manage to break into the lightning pool, the prestige our Xiao family has built up over tens of millions of years would have been destroyed by your hands. How could he possibly have broken in? Said Xiao Yan unhappily. You're still putting on a brave front? Sighed the veiled woman. Haven't you witnessed the power of the 16 divine generals? Forget it, I can't be bothered to talk to you anymore. You're the head of the Xiao family now. You have to use your head a little more. I know you're desperate to prove yourself, but I'm afraid you've chosen the wrong opponent to go up against a colossus like the Profound Pavilion. With that, the veiled woman bowed to Xianji once more. Senior, please don't take offense if I've offended you in any way. The Xiao family and the Profound Pavilion are two major factions under the God Emperor's command. His Excellency is the God Emperor's to worry about when we fight each other. Let's just forget about this. See? That's the attitude you should have when dealing with a problem, said Xianji, rolling her eyes at Xiao Yan. Xianji rolled her eyes at Xiao Yan. At the same time, she said to the veiled woman, For your sake, I won't attack the lightning pool by force. If I accidentally break through, your Xiao family won't be able to keep face. Senior, you jest. Even if you called in the entire Profound Pavilion, they wouldn't be able to break in. You know that, don't you? The veiled woman pursed her lips and smiled calmly, then changed the subject. Let's not talk about this anymore. Senior, why exactly have you come here? I want your Shao family to help me erase someone's divine tribulation, but since you're here as well, I'll be frank with you. In truth, Yi Zichen is undergoing tribulation at the same time as the person I want to erase his divine tribulation with. The veiled woman's arms instantly trembled. Then she turned, frowned, and roared, "To the lightning pool! To the lightning pool!" Chapter 997. Chapter 997. End of divine tribulation. The veil obscured the woman's expression, but from her steps it was clear how anxious she was. The Shao family clansmen who'd brought them here were astonished. The Shao family's lightning pool was a secret location. Outsiders didn't know its exact location, but the veiled woman was familiar with the place. It was obvious she'd been here many times before. Although he was astonished, he could only obediently lead the way for them. TCH. The Shao family's lightning pool sure is well hidden. It wasn't just Shao Yan. Xian Ji followed them in as well. She'd been in the royal capital for so long, but to tell the truth, this was her first time inside the Shao family's compound. Senior, please don't tell anyone else. We brought you here as a sign of our Shao family's sincerity, said the veiled woman indifferently. Xian Ji chuckled. I naturally won't tell anyone. Naturally, I won't tell anyone about this. But since I know where the lightning pools are, I'll have a better route to take next time to attack them. Xian Ji. Shao Yan furrowed his brows. Shao Yan, shut up. The veiled woman pressed Shao Yan down, then smiled and replied, Senior, you really like to joke. But if you really want to attack the Shao family's lightning pool, I advise you to give up on that idea. I'm just saying. Xian Ji wasn't stupid. The Shao family had towered over the god realm for millions of years without falling. Everyone had to be wary of their resources. Perhaps one of the Shao family's elders was near the lightning pool. Attack the lightning pool. She was just saying. The veiled woman smiled and nodded at her. At that moment, a middle-aged man walked out of the hidden lightning pool. My lord. Judging from his expression, he'd clearly just finished his tribulation. The youth holding the ancient scriptures by Shao Yan's side arched his brows when he saw him. Why did you come out? The youth's question startled the clansman. Then he saw that the profound pavilion's Lady Providence had also come to the lightning pool. The tribulation's over. What's going on? It's over. The youth covered the middle-aged man's mouth, smiled apologetically at Xian Ji, then dragged the man to the side. What is it? The middle-aged man was also a little confused. Why did the lightning tribulation come for him? What's going on? Why are people from the profound pavilion here? Isn't this our secret land? Also, who is that veiled woman? What's going on? You don't have to worry about that. I just want to ask you, have you finished your lightning tribulation? Asked the tome youth with a frown. Yes, they're all done. There's a total of 99 bolts of lightning, none missing. However, when that brat was facing his tribulation, a dragon actually joined in. Later on, a demon also joined in. Demon race. The youth was stunned for a moment before he recovered and asked. Then let me ask you, what's the current situation of the dragon clan? Is it dead or, he's dead? The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and said, Didn't you say that it would stop until that kid dies? That dragon has been blocking the lightning for that brat. If I were to be struck to death by that brat, the prerequisite is that I have to be killed by someone from the dragon clan. As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man's expression suddenly turned serious. Hey, that veiled woman isn't a member of the dragon clan, is she? She. After learning that the middle-aged man had killed a dragon, the tome youth clenched his fists and sighed repeatedly. Then he pointed at the middle-aged man and frowned. You're in big trouble now. It can't be. I was right. The people from the dragon clan have really come to ask for him? The middle-aged man's eyes widened. That dragon's bloodline is pretty pure. A golden dragon. Back then, I was wondering whether or not to kill her. Why did a dragon come to the capital? No, I'm working for your Shao family. You have to guarantee my safety. The middle-aged man was a bit flustered. He'd just come to earn some extra income. How had he offended a dragon? In truth, the Tome youth had found this man from the outside. Yi Zichen had the profound pavilion's support, so as Xiao Yan's advisor, he naturally had to consider all aspects of the situation. In order to leave a way out, he'd specially found this middle-aged man to oversee the lightning tribulation. Even if the profound pavilion really did come looking for the Xiao family, all they had to do was push the blame onto the middle-aged man. Even if the profound pavilion was angry, they'd have no choice but to swallow their anger out of consideration for the Xiao family's status. However, just now, when the profound pavilion attacked the Xiao family, the Tome youth could tell. He had a temper. Even if he pushed the middle-aged man out of the way, it would be absolutely useless. Hey kid, I'm just here to earn some wine money. Don't screw me over. All right. The Tome youth frowned, took out a bag of shinbi, and tossed it to the middle-aged man. Take this money and run. Also, you can't tell anyone that I came looking for you. The middle-aged man weighed the bag in his hand, then smiled, revealing 8 teeth. No problem. Lil Ji. At that moment, Xiao Yan's voice rang out from behind them. The Tome youth turned around and replied. He patted the middle-aged man on the shoulder, smiled, and ran over. My lord. Xiao Yan frowned, then glanced at the Tome youth and the middle-aged man who'd left in a hurry. How come I've never seen that person before? Is he from the Xiao family? Ha ha ha. The Tome youth laughed awkwardly, then tapped the tome in his hands, his eyes flashing. My lord, that person isn't from the Xiao family. I hired him from somewhere else. There were some things he couldn't say in front of others, so he could only transmit to Xiao Yan. When he heard this, Xiao Yan frowned. Who gave you the guts? What kind of place was this? The Xiao family's forbidden lightning pool. Lil Ji had actually dared to hire someone from the outside, and he was wearing the uniform of one of the Xiao family's lightning-wielding cultivators? My lord, I've thoroughly investigated this person's background. As for the other details, I'll explain them to you later. But right now there's a problem. The lightning tribulation of the person Xian Ji wants to protect has already ended. That person underwent tribulation with the youth the old emperor forbade from entering the god realm. Then doesn't that mean? Yes, that middle-aged man told me. That dragon is already dead. The Tome youth transmitted solemnly. Xiao Yan frowned and said nothing for a long while. When the Tome youth saw this, he couldn't help but shake his head inwardly. It wasn't a good choice to be the advisor of such a monarch. He sighed inwardly. He didn't wait for Xiao Yan's reply. Instead, he spoke according to what he'd considered. You're all here for the divine tribulation, aren't you? Then I'm afraid we came here for nothing. The divine tribulation is already over. Say that again. Xian Ji's expression instantly darkened. A majestic aura emanated from her body and bore down on the Tome youth. When he sensed Xian Ji's spiritual pressure, a hint of sadness appeared on the youth's face. However, he maintained his smile, ignoring the sweat dripping down his face. Chapter 998. And me rumble. Like a purple thunder dragon, the heavenly thunder roared down from the sky. From the momentum of its descent, it could be felt that it wanted to finish him off here and now. 3 waves of tribulation lightning. Yi Zichen didn't dare imagine how powerful 3 waves of tribulation lightning would be. He didn't want to think about it either. He really wanted to give up. However, deep in his heart, he was still conflicted. He didn't know why, but this bolt of heavenly lightning seemed to fall much slower than the previous ones. As the bolt of lightning descended, countless images flashed through Yi Zichen's mind. There was sweetness, bitterness, anger, and disappointment. He'd carefully cut his way through all the obstacles to get here. It seemed he'd really reached the end. I've hurt Kiki. His gaze landed on Xia Kiki, who was not too far away. From the beginning to the end, this little girl had always stood by his side unwaveringly. She was always the most worry-free. But she was also the most heartbreaking. Yi Zichen wasn't an idiot. He could feel Xia Kiki's love for him. However, he didn't dare respond. All he got in return was Xia Kiki's sacrifice. Until now, she was still the same. I've hurt you. Yi Zichen reached out and wiped her cheek, then struggled to move his body and hug her. Let me make it up to you a little. However, the instant he hugged her, Kiki, who'd been sprawled on the ground and unable to move, somehow found the strength to push him away. I won't let Big Brother Zichen die. Her pretty face was filled with determination. When Yi Zichen saw her gaze, his heart shrank. Don't! Xia Kiki, covered in blood, crawled shakily to her feet, then leapt into the air. Kiki! Yi Zichen reached out with his right hand. He really wanted to drag Kiki back, but he couldn't. But he couldn't do it. He could only watch as the purple lightning dragon devoured Xia Kiki. His mind was fixated on Xia Kiki's blood-covered face and her peaceful smile as she looked at him. His ears echoed with her slightly trembling yet blissful words. I'm so lucky. I've loved you for a long, long time. The golden dragon roared. Xia Kiki, in her golden dragon form, looked longingly down at Yi Zichen. Her eyes flashed with determination as she charged viciously at the lightning dragon. Boom! The two dragons crossed each other. No! Yi Zichen reached out with his right hand and roared in rage. He watched helplessly as the incoming golden dragon was swallowed up by the lightning dragons in the sky. The blinding white light faded. When Yi Zichen came back to his senses, Xia Kiki, who had turned into a golden dragon, had already disappeared. Kiki! That was impossible. Could it be that Kiki's soul was destroyed by the heavenly lightning? Yi Zichen slumped back into the disk in a daze, but the bolt of purple lightning hadn't dissipated yet. It continued to descend upon him. Boom! Purple light dazzled the world. When the purple light appeared, both Black Dragon and the Beast Region experts covered their eyes with their hand. In the face of such blinding light, there was no way they could ignore it. When the purple light faded, the Beast Region experts saw that the disk in the sky had completely disappeared. Yi Zichen, who'd been sitting on it this entire time, had naturally disappeared with it. Emperor Yi! The Beast Region experts' eyes widened in shock. Just as they were in a daze, a gust of wind swept past them. Ugh! The Beast Region experts coughed up a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. At that moment, they saw Black Dragon twist his neck, throw his head back, and laugh arrogantly. At this moment, there was no one who could stop him. Kiki! Above Dragon City, tears streamed down Xiaoyingda's face. He'd personally witnessed Xia Kiki being swallowed up by heavenly lightning. He didn't want to stand on the moral high ground and criticize her for her irresponsibility. Right now, all he wanted to express was the pain of a father watching his daughter die to lightning tribulation. The other sacred beast clansmen were indifferent. They felt sorry for Kiki and mourned for all the suffering she'd endured. However, none of this could make up for her irresponsible departure and the destruction of the Four Beasts formation. If the destruction of the Four Beasts formation really did lead to the destruction of the Three Realms, then Xia Kiki would forever be a sinner in their hearts. Big brother, don't be sad. Xiaoyingqiu stepped forward and reached out to comfort him. Xia Kiki's death pained him just as much, but even if she died, they still had a future to live for. Even if Yi Zichen perished in the divine tribulation, they had to live on, struggling at death's door. Only by living could they have hope. The current problem is grave, said a black tortoise. Said a black tortoise. Even though Xia Kiki blocked tribulation lightning for Emperor Yi, there's no way to erase her irresponsibility. Besides, Emperor Yi perished during his tribulation. What should we do now? The demons are watching us like tigers eyeing their prey, and Black Dragon is invincible. Our only hope was the four beasts formation, but you dragons buried it at our hands, said a white tiger. Enough. Xiaoyingda, who was already immersed in the pain of losing his daughter, shouted with bloodshot eyes, Kiki is already dead. The dead should be respected. Even if she was in the wrong when she was alive, shouldn't you all shut up now? But can you say she had nothing to do with the four beasts formation's destruction? Shouted a white tiger. So what if it dies prematurely? Emperor Yi has already perished in the lightning tribulation. Even if the four beasts formation really does turtle up for 100 years, won't the result be the same? Xiaoyingda's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Do you really think a miracle will happen in 100 years? That any of your clans could produce a peerless genius capable of killing Black Dragon in just 100 years? The four beasts formation was built on the assumption that Emperor Yi was still alive. He was trapped in the lightning tribulation, and Kiki went to save him. I don't think my daughter did anything wrong. On the other hand, all you talk about is benevolence, righteousness, and morality, but now you're pushing all the blame on my daughter. Isn't that ridiculous? Xiaoyingda. What, you want to fight? Xiaoyingda glared at him. I'm telling you, I'm not afraid of you. If you have the guts, come at me. Enough. At that moment, an elder of the Vermilion Bird clan stepped forward and pushed Xiaoyingda and the white tiger aside. Xiaoyingda's right. That girl's choice might have been very capricious, but if she could save Emperor Yi, it wouldn't be considered a mistake. Everyone can see the current situation. Even though Emperor Yi is no longer here, the four beasts formation is still our only hope of turning the tables. Even if the chances are slim, we still have to hold on to it. Inchio, does your dragon clan have any pure-blooded clansmen? Find them, and perhaps the four beasts formation will still work. This. Xiaoyingqiu furrowed his brows. Everyone can see it too. That girl Kiki is here. If there really were, there's no way my father would let her come. That's a bit troublesome. The elder of the Vermilion Bird clan frowned. However, at that moment, a beam of golden light flashed before their eyes. An old man with grizzled temples appeared between them. Chapter 999. A True Traitor Great-Grandfather. When the old man appeared, Xiaoyingda's face instantly filled with astonishment. Patriarch. The rest of the sacred race clansmen didn't dare to be negligent. Most of them were from the same generation as Xiaoyingda, and only a few were a generation older than him. However, Xiaoyingda had addressed this elder as great-grandfather, so they were naturally juniors in front of this elder. It was Xiaodong, the one the dragon god had sent to clean up the dragon race's blood pool. His murky eyes were as sharp as swords as they rested on Xia Inchio's face for a moment. What? Are you surprised that I'm here? As soon as he finished speaking, he pursed his lips and snorted. You'll definitely be surprised, right, little Inchio? Great-grandfather, what do you mean by that? Inchio doesn't understand. Xia Inchio's expression didn't change. He smiled modestly and politely. There's just one thing I don't know. Great-grandfather, your bloodline doesn't seem to be a golden dragon. Heh. He opened his palm and made a cut on it with his finger. Golden blood flowed out of the wound. When they saw this, Xiaoyingqiu and Xiaoyingda couldn't help but stare in shock. Golden blood. Senior, it's great that you have the golden dragon bloodline. Since we're all here, let's set up the formation as soon as possible while the silhouettes of the four sacred clans have yet to dissipate. Xiaodong nodded noncommittally. However, Xiaoyingqiu furrowed his brows and said, Don't worry, I'll be fine. The problem between you and the devil race is still unclear. How do you expect us to believe you? Inchio. Xiaoyingda grabbed him and stared at him with a confused look in his eyes. Brother, don't pull me. Xiaoyingqiu shook off Xiaoyingda's hand and snorted. He was already suspected of colluding with the demons. The old dragon's divine intent only sent him to the dragon race's blood pool to repent because of his contributions to the dragon race. Elder brother, You should know that he only had the Azure Dragon bloodline, not the Golden Dragon bloodline. We don't know where his bloodline came from. What if he sets us up while we're setting up the formation? Shut up, brother. Pa. He slapped Xiao Yingqiu across the face, then glared at Xiao Yingda and roared angrily. I told you to shut up. Regardless of whether or not Xia Dong had colluded with the demons, such a shameful matter couldn't be discussed in front of outsiders. Moreover, it didn't matter where Xia Dong's bloodline had come from. His appearance proved that he had nothing to do with the demon race. If there really was, then there was no need for him to come here. As long as he didn't appear, there would never be enough Golden Dragon clansmen, and the Four Beasts formation would never be set up. In his opinion, his younger brother shouldn't be so confused. Forget it. Xia Dong stretched out a hand to stop him. Since Yingqiu has put it this way, this old dragon can only explain things in order to dispel the ill feelings in everyone's hearts. This Golden Dragon bloodline was bestowed upon me by the Dragon God, and I came here under Senior Dragon God's orders. Do you think we'll believe you? Believe it or not, it's up to you. With that, Xia Dong walked over to where Xia Kiki had been. The sacred race projection beneath his feet glowed faintly. The other sacred race clansmen glanced at each other, but didn't ask any more questions. They returned to their respective positions. None of them were idiot. If Xia Dong really was colluding with the demons, there was no need for him to come here. When he saw the others return to their positions, Xia Yingqiu's expression shifted. He gritted his teeth and returned to his original position. However, at that moment, Xia Yingda received a transmission in his sea of consciousness. Xia Yingqiu, be careful. This transmission was from Xia Dong. Xia Yingda glanced at Xia Yingqiu vaguely before replying, "You're right. Great-grandfather Yingqiu. It's hard to say, but his behavior is very strange. You should have sensed it." Xia Yingda was indifferent. He truly didn't understand Yingqiu's recent behavior. For example, his irresponsible behavior just now shouldn't have appeared on him. There was also the Dragon God's judgment. Perhaps he'd left Xia Yingqiu behind after everyone else had left. Yingqiu should have been the one to notify the other clansmen, but now it fell to him. Could it be? No matter what he's up to, we should focus on the Four Beasts formation. As for Yingqiu's problem, we'll just deal with it as it comes. All right. Xia Yingda nodded at Xia Dong, then lowered his head and poured the power of his bloodline into the illusory sacred ancestor. However, no one noticed that Xia Yingqiu's gaze had suddenly turned sinister. I thought I wouldn't need to do anything now that Kiki had escaped the formation. I never would have guessed that old bastard actually had the bloodline of a true dragon. Xia Yingqiu snorted sinisterly as he poured the power of his bloodline into the illusory sacred ancestor. He glanced at the surrounding sacred beast clansmen. Practically all of them were pouring their bloodline power into the Four Beasts formation. Xia Yingqiu looked around cautiously to confirm that no one was paying attention to him. Are you done recovering? A strand of spiritual sense transmitted from his sea of consciousness. Before long, Guli, who'd been sitting cross-legged in Dragon City, frowned. Then he rose to his feet. Stay alert! Roared the people of Dragon City, only to see Guli pursing his lips into a faint smile. At that moment, the demon sovereigns and zombie progenitors rose to their feet. Almost as soon as they did, the experts of the dragon race took the initiative to meet them. They looked at each other from afar. Get ready. Let's go. A cold smile tugged at Guli's lips. Just as the experts of Dragon City were on high alert. Die! An arrogant roar resounded from behind them. When they turned around, they saw that Xia Yingqiu's hand was stuck in the chest of a dragon race clansman. His hand was tightly gripping the man's heart. Cough. The other dragon race clansman coughed up mouthfuls of blood. Xia Yingda stared at his little brother in disbelief. Yingqiu, you should be thanking me. Out of consideration for our many years of brotherhood, I didn't kill you. Xiaoingqiu's face twisted into a sinister grin. Then he crushed the dragon clansman's heart, golden blood dripping from his hand. That's great. I'd like to see where you're going to find clansmen with the bloodline of a golden dragon. The experts above Dragon City were also somewhat dumbfounded. Xiaoingda even cried out in pain. Why? Who knows? Xiaoingqiu shrugged at Xiaoingda, then calmly walked out of the four beasts formation. He looked contemptuously at the experts of Dragon City, as well as the heavily injured sacred beast clansmen who'd coughed up blood. Good luck. A golden dragon roared and soared into the sky, then landed by Gu Li's side. When he saw Xiaoingqiu walk into the demon camp, Xiaoingda roared, his eyes bloodshot. Chapter 1000. Qualifications, welcome, welcome. When he saw Xiaoingqiu, Gu Li opened his arms as if to hug him. However, Xiaoingqiu ignored his warm welcome. Ha! Xiaoingqiu smiled sheepishly and lowered his arms. I've fulfilled my promise. You must fulfill yours as well. Of course. I can guarantee that the dragon race will still stand tall in the Beast region. You'll still be one of the strongest clans in the Beast region in the future. Gu Li smiled calmly. He looked at Xiaoingqiu with a gaze that seemed most trustworthy. You're right, he replied confidently. He clenched his fists, then turned his gaze back to Dragon City. Xiaoingqiu, you traitor! Xiaoingda roared for a long time. When he heard this, Xiaoingqiu couldn't help but lower his head, an apologetic look in his eyes. Don't blame me. I'm doing this for the sake of the clan. Yes, everything Xiaoingqiu did was for the sake of the dragon race. Half a year ago, Gu Li had sought him out. At the time, he'd flatly refused their invitation. That was, until the god race expert behind Gu Li appeared. He'd submitted. In the face of absolute power, in the face of the trembling in the depths of his soul. He couldn't answer with certainty. I refuse. He couldn't. However, his heart still stood with the dragon race. Everything he did was for the sake of the dragon race's future. It was just that the path he chose was one the world couldn't accept. But the way he saw it, it was the right path. Xiaoingqiu. Xiaoingda appeared in front of Dragon City's gate. Their former brothers stared into each other's eyes. Xiaoingqiu could see his older brother's fury. He didn't dare look him in the eye, but his conscience was clear. Your brother is furious. Aren't you two on good terms? Didn't you tell him about our agreement? Asked Gu Li, still picking his ear. Xiaoingqiu simply turned his head back silently. There's nothing to tell him. Even if I did, given his personality, there's no way he'd approve of my actions. The dragon race must survive. As for the infamy, I'll do it for you. Tch, you really are loyal, laughed Gu Li. But you must remember the agreement between us. A sinister aura instantly locked onto Gu Li. Xiaoingqiu glared at him sinisterly. If you're lying to me, I won't let you off even if I die. Logically speaking, Gu Li could completely disregard such threat. In the Beast region, Xiaoingqiu might be a peak-level expert, but in Gu Li's eyes, he was nothing. Moreover, he had already achieved his goal. There was no need for him to care about this fellow who was just a wastrel. However, he liked to put on an act until the end. Moreover, if he really went back on his word now, it might cause unnecessary trouble. Gu Li's eyes gleamed as he replied with a smile. You don't have to worry about that. Your dragon clan will definitely survive. If I'm really the kind of person who goes back on his word, there's no need for me to continue acting with you, is there? Xiaoingqiu snorted noncommittally. He thought so too. The other party's goal had been achieved, and with his means, there was no way for him to truly threaten any of them. If he wanted to go back on his word, he could do so right now. There was no need to keep up the act. Of course, he couldn't rule out Gu Li's bad taste. All he could do now was gamble. However, he might be disappointed. Gu Li really was that kind of person. You might be in danger if you stay here. Hurry up and leave. Once everything's over, you'll return to your clan in glory. When the time comes, your clansmen will be grateful for your decision. Humph. Remember our agreement. With that, Xiaoingqiu transformed into a golden dragon and left Dragon City. Only now did Gu Li's face light up with disdain. He was truly stupid. Xiaoingqiu, don't even think of running, you traitor! Xiaoingda instantly transformed into a roaring golden dragon. However, just as he flew over Gu Li's head, a pair of huge hands slapped him down. Thud! One foot landed on Gu Li's body, then he heard Gu Li laugh playfully. Brother Ingqiu is one of us now. He's finished his mission and is resting. Don't disturb him. Demon race scum. The 100-meter-long Xiaoingda couldn't break free from Gu Li's foot. All he could do was glare at Gu Li and roar. The winner takes all. You used to be the victors, so you naturally thought of yourselves as righteous. But after this battle, when we emerge as the victors, 1,000 years from now, your righteousness will cease to exist. When that happens, it might even be us demons, full of benevolence and morality, who will criticize you from the highest vantage point. Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't think we'll have the chance to criticize you. After this battle, you'll all die. He flipped his right hand and a golden rope fell onto Xiaoingda's body. In an instant, the golden rope bound him tightly. Brother Ingda! The people of Dragon City clenched their fists and roared. Then, they heard someone from the dragon race gnash his teeth. I never would have guessed that Xiaoingqiu was the true traitor. You dragon race people are really something. Your clansmen are the best, but you're the ones with the most problems. The black tortoise who'd set up the 4 beasts formation snorted angrily. When the dragon race heard this, they had no way to retort. We can't even set up the 4 beasts formation now. It really isn't worth it for our clansmen. They risked their lives to buy us time. Ha, stop arguing. At that moment, someone shouted from the crowd. Before long, they saw Li Jiai, followed by countless human experts. If you have time to argue, why don't you think about how to deal with the aftermath? Where'd this little girl come from? It's not your place to speak, snorted someone from the beast region. Then he felt a chill on his neck. Go Yuzhan, with his hair on his head and an apple in his hand, had pressed his staff against the man's neck. You said Big Sister Jiai doesn't have the right? Crash. Instantly, quite a few sacred beast region experts furrowed their brows. But a moment later, weapons pressed against their necks and chests. Obviously, the humans and the beast region had split into 2 camps. As for why the human experts obeyed Li Jiai, it was because her master had given them their lives. There were quite a few neutral experts who wanted to play peacemaker, but when they sensed the murderous auras on both sides, they backed down. At that moment, Li Jiai smiled indifferently. She waved her hand, and the group of human experts put away their weapons. Then, she turned to the people of the Beast region. Chapter 1001. The 3 Yao Emperors. The situation was already dire, but the people of the Beast region were still arguing with each other and pushing the blame onto others. They talked about benevolence, righteousness, and morality, but in their hearts, they only cared about immediate benefits. Was this necessary? At the very least, Li Jiai believed it was pointless. She really did hate them. They'd only talk to you on the same level if you demonstrated your power. In short, she had a bad impression of certain clans in the Beast region. Or rather, they were extremely bad. But no matter how bad her impression of them was, she still needed them to stand on her side. She didn't want to give up, even if she was at the end of her rope. When they saw the humans put away their weapons, the people of the Beast region sighed in relief. Just now, Li Jiai's forces had exploded with power no weaker than theirs. Then what do you think, Your Excellency? After witnessing Li Jiai's methods, the troublesome Beast region clansman snorted enigmatically. Do you really think we can turn the situation around with just our forces? Previously, even the experts of the peak-level clans could only pin their hopes on the 4 beasts formation. Now, with just us. So you're saying we're just going to sit here and wait to be captured? Sometimes, a person matured in an instant. The moment Hua Hai died, Li Jiai had changed. Although she still seemed a bit immature in front of these old fogies, her words, actions, and mannerisms already had the bearing of a sect master. The Beast Region clansman rubbed his nose resentfully. Of course, he didn't dare let Li Jiai slap that label on his head in front of so many people, but that was pretty much what he was thinking. Li Jiai glanced coolly at the clansman, then turned to the other Beast Region clansman. This is the final battle. No matter the result, I'd rather die at their hands than sit here and wait to be captured by the demons. I'll never be a slave again. If you think the same way as me, take out your weapons. If you think the same way as those incompetent fools, then stay here and watch us die. Enjoy your futureless lives. With that, Li Jiai walked out of Dragon City. Her words caused the elders of the 100 Flowers Gate to feel especially gratified. However, their gratification was quickly replaced by a faint sense of pity. If she was given enough opportunities, perhaps the 100 Flowers Gate would truly be able to continue its former glory. Sitting and waiting for death. No one would make such a choice. Even the people of the Beast Region who'd been speaking such depressing words tightened their grips on their weapons and followed Li Jiai out of Dragon City. It could be said that the current situation was tragic. They might be going to their deaths, but dying on the battlefield was much better than being a slave. Looks like they're prepared to fight to the death. When he noticed the commotion above Dragon City, Gu Li's lips curved into a disdainful smile. Now, it could be said that he truly had nothing to fear. Su Yun, who had once made him feel threatened, had already used his soul to refine the formation. Now, his soul had dispersed. Yi Zichen also died in the lightning tribulation. No. Gu Li's calm smile inexplicably froze. He instinctively looked back at the disk. The blue disk floating in the sky had already disappeared, but if Yi Zichen really did die, his imperial fate would be transferred to Jianchun. Why didn't he sense any imperial fate blessing him? As he considered this, Gu Li's expression grew solemn. However, he had no time to think too much. Black Dragon had already joined them. Your Excellency Black Dragon. The remaining demons in the twin 8-level formations bowed to him. It wasn't just them, the zombie progenitors bowed respectfully as well. They had no choice. Even Jiangchen, who devoured Ingo's soul, felt immense pressure when facing Black Dragon. On the battlefield, Black Dragon was the only one he feared. In order to avoid angering him, it was best to be cautious. Gu Li's expression was solemn. He gathered his thoughts and bowed to Black Dragon with a smile. Your Excellency Black Dragon, you've returned. Have you dealt with everything on your side? How long will it take to deal with them? Black Dragon snorted arrogantly. He looked over to where he'd fought the Beast Region experts and saw them all lying on the ground in a disorderly manner. Even the White Emperor of the Tiango clan had a gaping hole in his chest. He sat motionless on the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. When he saw White Emperor's miserable state, Gu Li couldn't help but arch his brows. In truth, he sort of hoped that White Emperor would finish off Black Dragon. That way, he'd be in less danger. But then he thought about it. If White Emperor finished off Black Dragon, wouldn't he die even faster? For the sake of his life, all he could do now was pretend to be pitiful. Your Excellency, you're absolutely right. Given your current strength, unifying the 3 realms is no problem at all. Not to mention these Beast Region barbarians. Alright, don't flatter me here. In terms of tactics, Gu Li, you're the one with the most. If you hadn't planted people in the dragon race's ranks, their 4 beasts formation might already be complete. No matter how powerful I am, I can't do anything to them. Black Dragon smiled calmly, then patted Gu Li on the shoulder. I should be the one thanking you for that. It's my duty, said Gu Li humbly. Gu Li humbled himself. To put it bluntly, his life was now in Black Dragon's hands. Don't be fooled by Black Dragon's smile. No one could say for certain whether or not he'd immediately turn hostile. Humbling himself and being cautious was absolutely no problem. Your Excellency, look, the Beast Region's people are ready to fight us to the death. We fight us to the death? Ghoulie, that's not a good word, snorted Black Dragon, narrowing his eyes. Do they really think they're worthy? Before he'd even finished speaking, he waved his right hand. A purplish-black ball of light containing enough power to destroy heaven and earth flew towards Dragon City. Let's go. The Beast Region is finished. Such contempt and disdain. Black Dragon didn't even have the slightest bit of respect for the survivors of the Beast Region and humans who'd already cast aside their own lives. One casual attack from him was enough to determine their fate. The instant the ball of light appeared, the Beast Region and humans felt powerless to resist. However, at that moment, a triangular mirror suddenly appeared in front of the Dragon's Gate. When the ball of light touched the surface of the mirror, it was directly reflected by the mirror. Black Dragon, who'd already turned around and was about to leave, frowned. At the same time, he looked back and produced a purple ball of light, just like the first one. Annihilation. When the two balls of light collided, space shattered. Black Dragon looked back at the mirror and snorted. Chapter 1002. Go all out. The three Yao Emperors of the half-beast race. Due to the half-beastmen's special traits, the Beast Region had always ostracized them. They could only reluctantly settle in a tiny patch of land near Mount Biluo. Even though it was only a bronze mirror, Black Dragon was certain of this. They'd definitely come. However, what surprised him was that the half-beastman's relationship with the Beast Region wasn't particularly harmonious. If he had to put it bluntly, the demons and half-beastmen had both been expelled from the Beast Region. It seemed they were in the same boat. The three Yao Emperors. As soon as Black Dragon said this, the people of the Beast Region stared blankly. What are they doing here? Although the bronze mirror had saved their lives, the people of the Beast Region didn't appreciate it at all. Instead, their gazes were filled with disdain. They think they're worthy of being called the Yao clan? They're a disgrace to the Yao race. Some people in the crowd didn't even bother to hide their curses. Li Jie couldn't help but knit her brows. Just now, Black Dragon's people had saved them. Why were the people of the Beast Region speaking so violently? Third Elder, do the three Yao Emperors have any grudges with the Beast Region? The puzzled Li Jie could not help but ask the elder beside her. This elder had been by Hua Hai's side ever since he had first established his sect. In the three realms, he could be considered a senior. She might be able to obtain some useful information from him. As expected, Li Jie wasn't disappointed. The elder really did tell her the whole story. The three Yao Emperors are actually the three emperors of the half-beastmen. It's just that their identities are somewhat special. They're not Yao, but they're not humans either. They're a combination of human and Yao. Is there a problem with that? Young sect master, you might not know this, but in truth, intermarriage between Yao and humans is a huge taboo in the Beast Region. If they give birth to children, it's even more difficult for the Yao to accept. Yao are very old-fashioned. They can only reproduce within their own clans. They can't even admit to interbreeding. But the Empress of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan is in love with the spirit ape Yuan Hong. Aren't her sisters Su Luer and the dragon Xia Kiki both close to Yizichen? Why is it that they can be together, but not the people of the Beast Region? Li Jie frowned deeply, but the old man just smiled. The Nine-Tailed Fox clan and the Dragon clan are both peak clans. Even if they want to slander us, they need to at least have the guts to do so. The Spirit Ape clan also has great Sage Sun to intimidate the other demons. Who would dare to say anything? Li Jie nodded in understanding. To put it simply, the people of the Beast Region bullied the weak and feared the strong. Most of the half-beastmen they chased out belonged to the weaker races. Actually, intermarriage between humans and Yao has already been gradually accepted by the Beast Region, said Yizichen. It was at this point that the old man spoke up again. The only ones who followed the rule that humans and demons couldn't intermarry were the old-timers of old. As a result, the beast region's resistance to the half-beastmen gradually subsided. However, they still view the three Yao emperors with such enmity. You could say that the three Yao emperors are their scars. What do you mean? From the beast region's point of view, only Yao and Yao can intermarry and give birth to children with pure bloodlines. As a result, many demon clans even allowed siblings to marry each other. However, they never would have guessed that not only did the half-beastmen they chased out not perish on their own, they even gave birth to the three Yao emperors. The three Yao emperors were born from intermarriage between humans and ordinary clans. Their departure was accompanied by curses and expulsions from the beast region. But even though the entire beast region didn't notice, they broke through to Immortal King before anyone else. After breaking through, they even called themselves Yao Emperors. As she spoke, the old man's eyes flashed with mockery and mockery. Think about it. To the beast region, isn't this a slap in the face? As a result, the three Yao Emperors bore a grudge against the entire beast region. But if you ask me, the beast region brought this upon themselves. As she spoke, the old man's tone changed slightly. Li Jiai could sense the resentment she felt towards the beast region. At that moment, Li Jiai suddenly recalled her conversation with Hua Hai. At the time, she'd teased Hua Hai about how he and the third elder had lived their entire lives alone. She wondered if there was something fishy going on between the two of them. Hua Hai merely laughed and knocked her on the head. He'd replied that he had no choice but to marry. The third elder hadn't married because she'd fallen in love with a Yao clansman. It seems the beast region forcibly separated the third elder and her lover. Li Jiai sighed inwardly. The beast region's curses rang out incessantly. At that moment, the copper mirror in the sky transformed into 2 men and 1 woman. When they saw them, the beast region's curses grew even more vicious. When the woman heard this, she furrowed her brows. She wanted to attack, but the person next to her pulled her back and shook his head. So it really is you. Did you hear that? The beast region doesn't feel the slightest bit grateful for saving their lives. Think about your circumstances back then. Half-beastmen and demons are somewhat similar. I've never even considered plundering your territory. Why did you have to get involved? When he saw the 3 Yao emperors appear, Black Dragon couldn't help but rub his forehead and sigh. In truth, he really didn't want to fight them. It wasn't that he was afraid of them, but rather that their combination technique was truly a headache. Since Your Excellency Black Dragon isn't interested in the half-beastman's territory, I must thank Your Excellency on behalf of all of us. A handsome man in blue robes with antlers on his head cupped his hands and smiled. Although he looked young, he was actually much older than most of the people present. The Deer Emperor was one of the 3 emperors of the half-beastmen. He'd broken through to the Immortal King level in 10,000 years, and was now a peak Immortal King. He was only a step away from ascending to godhood. Forget about thanking me. If you 3 Yao Emperors could leave, I would be eternally grateful, said Black Dragon, cupping his hands respectfully. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. The Deer Emperor let out a disappointed sigh. In truth, we 3 siblings don't want to get involved either. Whether the beast region lives or dies has nothing to do with us. His childhood experiences made it impossible for him not to hate the beast region. He could still vaguely remember how he and his mother had been expelled by the beast region. If he hated them that much, he wouldn't have deliberately left Mount Biluo to face his tribulation when he broke through to the Immortal King level. He'd done all of this to make the beast region regret their actions. The other 2 felt the same way. The way they saw it, the beast region's survival didn't have much to do with them. They couldn't be bothered to care either. Then everyone. Black Dragon arched his brows. We don't care about the beast region's survival, but we owe little friend Yi. No, I should call him Emperor Yi now. We owe him a favor. There's nothing we can do about it. We have to repay him. The Deer Emperor shrugged helplessly. In response, Black Dragon smiled calmly. So you're saying that the three emperors are determined to make me your enemy? I don't want to be your enemy, but I have no choice but to repay a favor. The dear emperor sighed and shook his head repeatedly, a faint smile on his face. Chapter 1003. Kill anyone who moves. The misty rain was hazy. The rain seemed to be heavier than before. When the raindrops hit the ground, they formed a white mist. Your Excellency, do you want me to teach them a lesson? Asked one of the demon sovereigns. These Yao emperors were truly shameless. Black Dragon had already given them so much face, yet they still wanted to oppose him? If such people were not taught a good lesson, they would really go against the heavens. Your subordinate requests to battle. Your subordinate requests to battle. More and more demon sovereigns stepped forward. As far as they were concerned, the three Yao emperors didn't have any real ability. If they really were strong, the half-beasts wouldn't have cowered in a place like Mount Biluo for so long. This was their chance to show off in front of Black Dragon. None of them wanted to let this opportunity slip through their fingers. However, Black Dragon simply waved them off, then took a step forward. All of you, stay here. Without my orders, none of you are to attack. The demon sovereigns retreated. They didn't have the guts to disobey Black Dragon. At the same time, Black Dragon pursed his lips and looked at the three Yao emperors. I'd like to see for myself whether or not the three Yao emperors' fusion technique is as powerful as the rumors say. Please. With a wave of his right hand, spiritual pressure appeared. When the three Yao emperors sensed this spiritual pressure, they couldn't help but frown. On their way to the beast region, they'd sensed a powerful spiritual pressure. They hadn't expected the owner of this spiritual pressure to be Black Dragon himself. It seems we won't be able to hide our strength any longer. The handsome dear emperor smiled with a sharp look in his eyes. From the spiritual pressure released by Black Dragon, they knew that if they didn't use body fusion, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to fight him. Fusion technique. The three Yao emperors had developed and created this spiritual technique. It required a high level of tacit understanding between the users. Whether it was the frequency of their breathing or the fluctuations of their spiritual energy, they had to be exactly the same. Only the three Yao emperors, who'd been with each other since childhood and had worked together for tens of thousands of years, could truly accomplish this. You still want to hide your strength at a time like this? Only you could think of something like that. Among the three people, a burly man who was at least 2 meters tall and wore an animal skin coat couldn't help but tease. This person was also the bear emperor of the three emperors. But how long has it been since we last used body fusion? We can't afford to make any mistakes. Brother Xiong, you should say that to yourself. If there's really a problem, it's definitely because of you. The only female among the three emperors pursed her lips and smiled faintly. She was petite to begin with, and in front of the bear emperor, she appeared even more petite and adorable. She always had a harmless look on her face, but she had a speed that ordinary people couldn't match. The Sparrow Emperor. That was her title. Hearing the Sparrow Emperor's words, the Bear Emperor scratched his head embarrassedly and smiled. The handsome Deer Emperor also interrupted their conversation at this moment. Let's not talk about it anymore. It won't be good if our distinguished guests wait too long. However, Big Brother Bear, you must control yourself when the time comes. If the body fusion fails midway, then we will all die here. The Bear Emperor's expression darkened when he heard this. He knew very well that there was a chance of failure if he tried to enter the clan now. If they failed here, only death awaited them. Damn it, ye brat, it's really hard to return a favor. The stocky Bear Emperor couldn't help but curse. However, his gaze suddenly sharpened. A spiritual body emerged from his body. He wasn't the only one. The Deer Emperor and Sparrow Emperor's souls also left their bodies. So it's like that. When he saw the three spiritual bodies leave their bodies, Black Dragon revealed a curious smile. Then what should we do with their bodies? While he was pondering this, the three emperors answered for him. The souls that had left their bodies pointed at the three main bodies that were floating in the air. The three bodies landed in front of Li Jie. She received the dear emperor's transmission in her consciousness. "We'll leave our bodies in your care." The sudden transmission in her consciousness gave Li Jie a fright. She glanced at the dear emperor's spiritual body, only to find him smiling and nodding at her. Li Jie nodded slightly, then placed the three emperors' bodies in a relatively safe location. When the three bodies landed, she could sense the Beast Region's people looking at her strangely. "Take good care of the three emperors' bodies. Keep a close eye on the Beast Region's people." The human experts nodded. Then, the Beast Region's people sensed several auras locking them down. What's the meaning of this? It didn't feel good to be watched. As soon as they sensed the human auras lock onto them, the Beast Region's people frowned and shouted angrily. "The three emperors' bodies can't be harmed. I know the Beast Region's relationship with the three emperors is rather delicate. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, I ask for your understanding." "You." The Beast Region's people frowned. Since she'd already said this much, Li Jie didn't bother hiding anything. She might as well announce her intentions. "Who vainly tries to harm the three emperors' bodies? Kill them. Don't go too far," shouted the Beast Region's people. However, as soon as they opened their mouths, they felt a cold dagger against their necks. Several auras locked onto them and exerted pressure on them. "Everyone, just listen to this young lady." At that moment, Xia Dong of the Dragon Clan spoke up. "The grudge between the half-beastmen and the Beast Region has long since passed. Besides, they're here to save us. Everyone, please calm down for the sake of this old dragon. What do you think?" "Then, for the sake of the Dragon Clan seniors, I won't bicker with them." The Beast Region expert took the opportunity to find a way out of this embarrassing situation and resentfully retreated. Seeing this, Xiaodong smiled. He was just about to walk over to Li Jie's side when a soft sword pressed against his throat. "Many thanks for your words of advice, Dragon Clan Senior. However, in the end, you're from the Beast Region. Please maintain a suitable distance from the three emperors' bodies. That way we'll all be fine." Li Jie's delicate face was solemn. Since the three emperors' bodies were in her care, she couldn't allow anything to happen to them. When the other beastmen saw this, they frowned. If it weren't for Xia Dong's advice, the Beast Region would have already started fighting the humans. Now, this little girl actually dared to point a sword at Xia Dong? "You! All of you back down!" shouted Xia Dong, frowning. He took a few steps back. Li Jie put away her sword. Even though she was facing the enmity of the entire Beast Region, she still spoke in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. "Many thanks for your understanding, Senior." Chapter 1004. The Three Emperors Might Up in the Sky. Raindrops pierced through the three Yao Emperors' souls and fell to the ground. Their eyes were tightly shut, and they stood in a triangular formation. Off in the distance, Black Dragon rested his chin on his hands, subconsciously glancing over at Li Jie and the three Yao Emperors. They'd left their main bodies for someone else to look after. Clearly, once their souls left their bodies, their main bodies wouldn't be threatened. Yet they'd so brazenly revealed such a huge flaw. Weren't they afraid? Black Dragon shook his head and chuckled. He naturally wouldn't touch the Yao Emperor's bodies. He was still looking forward to fighting them after they'd combined. Buzz. At that moment, a faint white dot of light suddenly appeared among the Yao Emperor's three souls. Like silk threads, their souls converged on that dot of light. Everyone, including Gu Li and the others from the Beast Region, watched in astonishment. Souls condensed. The three souls, which were originally not one, actually condensed, and after condensing, a new soul body was born. Gradually, spiritual pressure began to emanate from the souls. Black Dragon's eyes lit up with excitement as he gazed at the newly formed souls. What a genius idea! His tongue lightly licked his lips, and his powerful palms seemed to be rubbing them non-stop. Others might not be able to see through this, but with his vast knowledge, he could. What a genius idea this was! In the eyes of outsiders, every person's soul was unique. But the three Yao emperors had defied common sense. In a completely ethereal state, they'd separated their souls and reformed them at the same frequency. So long as they succeeded, their soul power would triple that of an ordinary person's. Naturally, their soul power would allow them to look up to any existence. Genius. This is truly a genius idea. Black Dragon stood in place, muttering incessantly. He watched intently, expectantly. He wouldn't disturb them. He wanted to personally witness this genius idea. Just how far could they go? The Beast Region cultivators watched in astonishment. The humans were no exception. They all had the same doubts. How on earth did they do it? The dot of light curled up like a newborn. When the last of the three emperors' souls condensed, the curled-up infant seemed to sit in a time machine. In just a few seconds it felt like over 10 years had passed. An elegant youth. The young man was wearing a white robe, or rather, the pure white of his soul body made people think that he was wearing a white robe. His eyes shone with a sharpness that could see through all things. Geniuses, you guys are geniuses. Standing on the ground, the Black Dragon laughed maniacally. Right now, the blood in his body was boiling. He desperately wanted to fight this newly born soul. You flatter me, Lord. The new soul inherited the dear Emperor's modesty and politeness. Your name. Truth be told, we siblings have never thought of a name for it. However, since it is a soul refinement process, we will call it Soul, said the youngster with a chuckle. At this moment, after learning the youth's name, Black Dragon's feet exploded with violent power. In an instant, the 100 meters of ground beneath his feet crumbled as his right fist, which was condensed with spiritual energy, blasted out. He didn't hold back at all. He wanted to use his strongest power to deal with this newborn youth. This was the respect one should have for their opponent. So strong. Go Yuzhan couldn't help but exclaim. This was the first time he had seen Black Dragon use his full strength. That power made his scalp go numb. Strong. This was the truest call from the bottom of his heart. The others on Dragon City's side also clenched their fists, their gazes fixed on the soul body in the sky. He was very calm. Even though Black Dragon's fist was about to land, the soul body youth leisurely stretched out a finger. One finger. Just one finger. His finger gently pressed against Black Dragon's fist, stopping there for a few seconds. Boom. A powerful shockwave radiated from the soul youth's finger and Black Dragon's fist. The violent shockwave made it so that no one could open their eyes. Boom. A loud boom resounded. When the shockwave dissipated, everyone saw Black Dragon crash to the ground, blood flowing from his mouth. Lord. Black Dragon reached out to stop the demon sovereign. At the same time, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes flashing with even more excitement. You are worthy of being my opponent. Thank you for your affirmation, Lord. The soul youth smiled back, neither servile nor overbearing. Boom. Black Dragon landed on the ground and charged at the soul youth once more. To everyone's astonishment, Black Dragon, who'd plunged the entire 3 realms into despair, couldn't even get close to the soul body. From start to finish, the soul youth had only moved a single finger. He's too strong. Who knows, maybe we really will survive. The people of the Beast region began to sigh. The humans gulped and stared fixedly at the Black Dragon and the Soul Avatar, who were clashing against each other non-stop. Do you feel proud that they saved you? Just as the crowd was sighing in admiration, a discordant snort rang out from the Beast region. Don't forget, they're half-beastmen. Don't you feel ashamed that they saved you? Following the direction of the voice, everyone saw that the person who spoke was a man with a scar at the corner of his eye and black bear fur all over his chest. He was shouting sinisterly. You can't say that. That's right. Senior Xiaodong also said that we should accept the half-beastmen. Besides, they came to save us. We should learn to be grateful and let bygones be bygones. That's right. There was a constant stream of retorts from the beast region, but the bear man merely snorted sinisterly, then retreated from their line of sight. Seeing him leave, no one paid any attention to him. They just focused all their attention on the void. Vomit. The black dragon fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. There were even a few of his teeth in the blood. It was obvious that the young man who had condensed his soul had an absolute advantage. Interesting, very interesting. Even though it was covered in wounds, the black dragon's eyes were still filled with excitement. He struggled to get out of the deep pit and licked his lips. Such a genius idea is worthy of such power. You flatter me, Lord. The youth maintained his elegant and courteous appearance as he said, My lord, you should also feel that you are not a match for us. You should let go. The territory outside the immortal region is already enough for you demons to thrive. Leave the beast region to the humans and beasts. Humph. Let's talk about this later. I haven't fought to my heart's content. Blowing his nose, Black Dragon laughed heartily and charged forward with berserk strength. The soul body sighed helplessly, then stretched out a finger. He froze. The spirit-bodied youth suddenly froze on the ground. His condensed soul also felt like it was about to break apart. Immediately after, he looked at the demon emperor's body. Someone. Chapter 1005. The bet and the pressure. By the time Black Dragon sensed the abnormality in the soul form, he could no longer retract his fist. The fist landed on the soul body's chest with a loud bang. The soul body, which was already crumbling to pieces, disintegrated into 3 souls with this one punch. The scattered Yao Emperor souls all revealed pained expressions, especially the Bear Emperor. His soul was already on the verge of dispersing. Black Dragon paid them no further attention. Instead, he turned his scarlet eyes to Dragon City. Just who did this? He was furious. Of course, he wasn't angry because he'd suffered at the hands of the soul form youth. Rather, he was furious that someone had forcefully ruined his fun. Enraged, Black Dragon reared his head back and roared. However, as soon as the soul form showed signs of abnormality, Li Jie looked at the 3 emperors' true forms and saw that the brawny bear man who'd spoken rudely earlier had somehow arrived in front of the 3 emperors. His bear paw had pierced right through the bear emperor's chest. There was no point in bickering over who'd let him in. Besides, Li Jie couldn't blame the human expert. Even she'd been distracted by the battle between the 3 emperors and Black Dragon. Besides, the 3 emperors were trying to save all of them. No one could have imagined that someone would actually do such a thing. Drag him away, Li Jie roared. It wasn't just the human experts. Even the people of the beast region charged forward. This guy. He'd harmed everyone. Ha ha ha, die, you filthy half-beastman. Die. The brawny bear man laughed hysterically. His hands were still stained with the bear emperor's blood. Kill him, roared the people of the beast region. However, there was no need for them to do anything. Black Dragon, his eyes bloodshot, had already landed in front of them. It's you, isn't it? Black Dragon roared sinisterly. Then, he glared at the brawny bear man who'd been captured by the human experts and exploded into a bloody mist in front of everyone. All of this happened too suddenly. Neither the experts of the beast region nor the human race had time to react. Only when the brawny bear man exploded in front of them did their hearts clench. Black Dragon had arrived. They, who had been shouting for the last battle, were speechless at this moment. They all froze on the ground, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. In an instant, the entire world fell silent. Gusts of chilly wind blew on their bodies. In this quiet environment where even a pin drop could be heard, they could hear the Black Dragon's furious breathing. But not long after, he smiled again. Forget it. Black Dragon chuckled and shook his head, then reached out with his right hand and grabbed the Yao Emperor's body. No one dared to stop them. Li Jie wanted to make a move, but her instincts told her not to. She could not restrain herself. She could not move. Injuring the main body will cause the soul to collapse. I can't deny that your soul condensation is a genius idea, but the drawbacks are too obvious. I really want to fight with you guys for a while, but one of you can't live anymore, so the effect of condensing the soul won't be as effective as before. Bang. After tossing the 3 bodies to the ground, Black Dragon glanced indifferently at the Demon Emperor's soul and body. How about this? I'm sure the 3 of you agreed to live and die together. In that case, I'll help you and let you die together. Stop. At that moment, a delicate shout rang out from behind Black Dragon. When he heard this, he arched his brows in astonishment. He didn't take these people seriously at all. Even though he was standing right in front of them, they didn't even dare move. It was obvious that they weren't worthy of even a single glance from him. But he never would have guessed that these fellows, whom he'd already feared to death. Someone actually dared to shout at him? Black Dragon looked back with interest. Li Jie clutched her flexible sword and glared at him viciously. Were you the one who spoke just now? Black Dragon could tell that she was very weak. She was weaker than most of the experts from the beast region and the human race. But he admired her courage and was willing to speak with her. That was me. Li Jie's face was deathly pale. Her heart pounded violently. You're not bad. Black Dragon's praise was sincere. She'd yelled at him impulsively, but now that he'd turned around and met her eyes, she'd answered his question. At the very least, her courage surpassed everyone else's. I admire your courage, but that doesn't mean I can tolerate you shouting at me. However, I'm still willing to give you a chance to say what you want to say. You're not allowed to touch their bodies, said Li Jie with a frown. Are you giving me orders? Little girl, I really don't like your tone. Black Dragon's expression suddenly darkened. Noticing the change in his expression, the people outside Dragon City grew nervous. However, in the blink of an eye, Black Dragon laughed. But I like your courage. Fine, since you won't let me touch their bodies, I'll give you a chance. As long as you can make me take a step back, I'll return their bodies to you. I will return their original bodies to you, and I can also release all of you here. How about it? The mood of the people present changed, and they all looked at Li Jie. They didn't stop her. Even if they did, what good would that do? They'd still die, but they didn't have any hope. How could she possibly force Black Dragon to take a step back? What a fool's dream. However, deep in their hearts, they still hoped for a miracle. It could be said that their emotions were extremely complicated. It was so complicated that even if they were asked to express their own feelings, they wouldn't be able to. Countless lives weighed down on Li Jie's shoulders. The pressure on her increased exponentially. She couldn't help but think of that smiling boy, no matter what time it was. Yi Zichen. He was the first person she thought of. So the burden on your shoulders has always been this heavy. Li Jie couldn't help but mutter to herself. Then she recalled that he died in the lightning tribulation. The way she saw it dying. Wasn't that a good thing for him? At the very least, he'd lost that crushing burden. Dying would be easier. Just like now. Countless lives weighed down on her shoulders. Fine, I promise you. Suddenly, Li Jie's eyes flashed with a sharp light. She stared straight into Black Dragon's eyes, enunciating each word. Remember what you said. The people outside Dragon City were stunned by Li Jie's reaction. Black Dragon was flabbergasted as well. Black Dragon had said that in order to use pressure to crush the girl, but he hadn't expected her reply to be so certain. Chapter 1006. Leave it to me. Hey, just what is Lord Black Dragon thinking? Why is he saying all this to the humans? Can't we just kill these guys? Said one of the demons in the distance with a frown. Even though they were quite far away, they could still hear the conversation between Black Dragon and Li Jie. Before he could finish his sentence, someone knocked on the demon's head. Is Lord Black Dragon's thoughts something you should be thinking about? Of course, I'm not trying to figure out Lord Black Dragon's thoughts. It's just that there's no need. Why don't we just kill all of them or capture them as slaves? Lord Black Dragon is trying to make them feel despair, snorted the demon. The demon snorted. Do you think that little girl can make our Lord take a step back? You're dreaming. All of you, shut up. The devil sovereign of the devil race suddenly roared. The other clansmen of the devil race hurriedly lowered their heads, not daring to speak. Shortly after, they saw the devil sovereign walking towards their back. While Lord Black Dragon isn't here, Li Min-yi, shouldn't you explain things to us? Said the demon sovereign through gritted teeth. His expression was especially dark as he looked at Li Min-yi, who was sitting on the ground in a daze. However, Li Min-yi didn't even raise her head. She continued to sit on the ground. The demon sovereign grabbed her by the collar and yelled, "This sovereign is talking to you. Do you think you can hide from Lord Black Dragon just because he didn't come looking for you? If it weren't for your man, would our demon race be in this state? Forget it. Let's wait for Lord Black Dragon to decide," comforted the other demon sovereigns. Min-yi might be a victim too. She's a victim. I saw it clearly. She doesn't have that line above her head. If it weren't for Lord Black Dragon, we might all be dead by now. How dare you tell us to forget it? Roared the demon sovereign as he glared at the other demon sovereigns. He pointed at Li Min. She has to give us an explanation? Right at this moment, Li Min-yi raised her head in a daze. Her face was filled with a bitter smile. Then just kill me. The demon sovereign who was grabbing Li Min-yi by the collar was stunned. Then, his expression turned even darker. Do you think I don't dare? Of course you dare. Li Min-yi crooked her neck and smiled. Then please kill me. I really don't want to live anymore. Black Dragon naturally noticed the situation on the demon race's side, but he didn't pay any attention to it. As soon as he confirmed Su Yun's betrayal, he gave up on Li Min-yi. He was actually more interested in Li Jie. He was very curious about this courageous girl. What kind of surprise would it bring him? Get out of the way. Li Jie's tone was very cold when she turned around. She slowly walked towards the back. Only then did the person outside Dragon City come back to his senses. He quickly retreated to the side and made way for her. Everyone's gazes landed on her. Feeling everyone's gazes, Li Jie's pressure multiplied. Stop. The moment she stopped, the people around her also swallowed their saliva. Could she do it? Even if they felt that Li Jie's chances of repelling the Black Dragon were slim, they still held hope in their hearts. However, amidst their anticipation, they couldn't help but think back to that bear. If it weren't for him, they would have long since been saved. Because he'd robbed them of any chance of survival, the others also hated the entire bear clan. However, even their own clansmen couldn't help but hate that fellow. In the face of life and death, everything was selfish. There were no clans here. They only selfishly believed that it was that fellow who'd forced them onto a path of no return. However, they still had hope. That hope was Li Jie. Countless gazes fell on Li Jie. She, who was behind them, felt the pressure that made it hard for her to breathe. Taking in a deep breath, he discarded all the distracting thoughts in his mind. Little girl, how much more time do you need to prepare? If you keep dragging things out, you'll be the one to suffer. In the distance, Black Dragon smiled calmly. When she heard the urging behind her, Li Jie turned around. There's no need to prepare. We can do it now. When he saw Li Jie's gaze, Black Dragon couldn't help but smile. In her eyes, he saw the kind of look that only a person would show when she was ready to die. Did she want to perish together with him? Black Dragon thought to himself. However, he also found this idea rather comical. Smiling and shrugging, Black Dragon put on an indifferent expression and raised his brows. Then let's begin. Before that, I want to confirm whether you'll really let them all go if I really make you take a step back. Li Jie's gaze was vicious as she stared straight ahead. Black Dragon nodded noncommittally. Of course. I want you to swear on your inner demons, said Li Jie. No problem. Black Dragon smiled and nodded. Then, he closed his eyes devoutly and said, I, Chioan, swear on my inner demons that if the girl in front of me can make me take a step back, I won't kill anyone here anymore. If I go back on my word, may the heavens and earth smite me. With that, a ray of gray light burrowed into Black Dragon's forehead. The oath was complete. Little girl, you can rest easy now, right? Black Dragon opened his eyes and smiled. Li Jia nodded slightly. When she saw that Black Dragon really swore on his inner demons, she completely relaxed. Her eyes shone with determination. Jai, the third elder of the 100 Flowers Gate, suddenly cried out. Could it be that she wanted to, Jai know? Li Jia just smiled at the old man. At this moment, her smile was so pure, yet it made people feel as if their hearts were about to break. The image of the sea of flowers blooming flashed through her mind. Master, your disciple has been unfilial. The 100 Flowers battle technique is about to be lost in your hands. A sad smile rose from the corner of her mouth, and spiritual power was released from her body. Faint black spiritual power lingered around her, blowing her hair up high. She reached out with her right hand, and the mark of a rose appeared in her pupils. Snap! She snapped her fingers. Suddenly, the sky changed color. Countless roses appeared around her, dyeing the world into a sea of black roses. Heh, so you're using this move. In the distance, Black Dragon smiled. When Hua Hai had used this move, he'd indeed felt threatened. However, he was now using all his spiritual energy. Besides, this girl wasn't as strong as Hua Hai. Black roses covered the sky. Those who'd experienced the sea of flowers blooming black roses were all stunned. Ha! She couldn't help but sigh and clench her fist. However, no one noticed that, beneath the sea of roses, a person had emerged from the sea of roses. Black roses bloom. Li Jia made up her mind and roared angrily. But at that moment, a pair of hands patted her shoulder, forcing her to swallow the rest of her words. Soon after, a low and deep voice rang out beside her ear. Chapter 1007. Crawl Back from Hellthud. When this familiar voice rang in her ears, Li Jia's delicate body instantly froze. She didn't look back, but tears streamed down her cheeks despite herself. It was him. Even if she didn't look, she was certain he'd returned. The people of Dragon City froze. After a while, someone among them cried out in alarm. Emperor Yi! The outskirts of Dragon City were in an uproar. They'd personally witnessed Yi Zichen perish in the lightning tribulation, but now he'd returned. In the heart of Dragon City, Su Lu and the others, who'd been flying through the air to assist Yi Zichen, stopped. Because she'd been gravely injured during the tribulation, she'd been resting the entire time. When her condition improved slightly, she led Su Zhu and Su Yan back to Dragon City. She hadn't wanted to bring Su Yan along at first. After what they'd just gone through, she wanted her little sister to rest. However, she couldn't dissuade her, so she could only come along. Did you hear that? Su Zhu looked at Su Lu and the others. Who on earth could cause such a commotion over there? Could it be that a hidden expert has appeared? A hidden expert? My silly little sister, you're overthinking things, said Su Lu with a bitter smile. Su Lu couldn't help but smile wryly. He's the only one who could cause such a commotion. Who? Yi Zichen. The outsiders of Dragon City cried out in alarm. The commotion even affected the demons in the distance. The demon sovereigns, who'd been in the middle of denouncing Li Min-yi, put her down and looked over at Dragon City. When they saw Yi Zichen, they were all astonished. What on earth is going on? Didn't he die in the lightning tribulation? The other demon sovereigns were so shocked they couldn't speak. Then, they suppressed their astonishment and snorted. So what if he returns? At most, he'll die again. Only Gu Li's eyes shone with sinister light. He clenched his fist. Yi Zichen, you're really tenacious. How could you be so stupid? Don't you know the consequences of using that technique? Yi Zichen's soft voice rang out in Li Jia's ears once more. Then she felt a gentle push her back to Dragon City. Only then did she see Yi Zichen behind her. His clothes were ragged, and the blood on his body would scab over. His pitch-black and deep pupils revealed the vicissitudes of life that did not match his age. She could not sense any will to live from him, even though he was still standing there, but it gave people the feeling that he was already dead. The rain washed over his body, causing the blood scabs to flow along with the rain to the ground. He stood where Li Jiai had been and looked at the Black Dragon expressionlessly. Black Dragon was astonished by Yi Zichen's sudden appearance. However, after a brief moment of astonishment, he revealed a faint smile. Emperor Yi, I thought you would die in the lightning tribulation. Looks like I've underestimated you. I'm dead, but I crawled out of hell. Yi Zichen's tone was so cold that it made people shiver. Combined with his ice-cold eyes, the chill was bone-piercing. Is that so? Then why did Emperor Yi crawl out of hell? Let some people who should go to hell report to hell. Are you referring to me? That's right. Yi Zichen nodded, but Black Dragon, who was standing 100 meters away, glared at him coldly. Then I'll have to disappoint you. I'm afraid I'll have to send you back to hell. Perhaps. Yi Zichen's tone was so calm it was maddening. He floated up into the air, then pointed in front of him. Come. Black Dragon's eyes narrowed into slits. He didn't know why, but when he faced Yi Zichen, he felt an indescribable pressure. Yi Zichen clearly hadn't released any spiritual pressure, and he was clearly a sky supreme. Why should I listen to you? With that, Black Dragon prepared to attack the nearby Beast Region clansmen and humans. However, just as he raised his hand, a streak of sword light landed in front of his feet. Come. It was still that one word, but there was no need to doubt it. After a few seconds, Black Dragon maintained the same posture he'd been in before the sword light landed. His gaze was fixed on the bottomless ravine. He hadn't sensed anything at all. If that sword light had landed on him, he might already be. Impossible. As soon as this thought appeared, Black Dragon rejected it. Even if Yi Zichen had passed divine tribulation, he was still just a supreme. He was a sky supreme. A sky supreme. Black Dragon repeated this over and over in his heart. Although he was extremely unwilling, when he looked at the ravine one more time, he clenched his fists and walked up to Yi Zichen's indicated position. I never would have guessed Emperor Yi would actually. Before Black Dragon could say anything else, a streak of sword light swept towards him. So fast. Black Dragon's pupils constricted. He'd been locked onto Yi Zichen this entire time, yet he hadn't even seen him make a move. As for where that streak of sword energy had come from, he had no way of knowing. He had no time to think. The sword energy was already right in front of him. His tendons and bones wriggled, and a bone shield blocked the sword energy. However, a second later, he saw an overwhelming wave of sword light envelop him. Countless streaks of sword light sealed off his path of retreat. Boom! The swords all landed on the Black Dragon's body, emitting a deafening roar. Is it over? Someone near Dragon City asked. At that moment, Su Lu'er and the others arrived and saw Yi Zichen standing proudly in the sky. When she saw Yi Zichen's expression, Su Lu'er couldn't help but frown. In particular, when she saw the countless streaks of sword light, she couldn't help but be moved. When they saw the explosion, the demons felt their hearts in their mouth. Your Excellency! The smoke dispersed. When the blinding light dissipated, everyone saw a ball of white bone hovering in the sky. Not long after, the white bones scattered, and the Black Dragon walked out unscathed. How could this be? The people of Dragon City couldn't help but be dismayed. When they saw Yi Zichen's sword energy appear, they thought they'd be able to deal with him. But how could he be so strong? Su Lu'er couldn't help but frown. Yi Zichen had knocked her unconscious before the battle, then forced his way through tribulation after waking up. She had no idea how strong Black Dragon was. When she saw Yi Zichen's sword light, she'd thought he'd win for sure. But this was the end result. Emperor Yi, even after emerging from the depths of hell, you're only SOSO. Black Dragon brushed the rain off his body, a mocking smile in his eyes. However, Yi Zichen merely glanced at him coolly, then pulled a sword out of a spatial rift. Chapter 1008. Chapter 1008. The remodeled Xianyuan sword. The blade wore a scabbard, but there was no sense of spirituality whatsoever. Any treasured sword would have a spirit, let alone divine weapons. Even the treasured weapons that the treasure tower normally auctioned off would have their own spirit. This sword had no spirituality at all. To outsiders, it looked like a useless sword. But when Black Dragon saw this spiritless blade, he felt a chill run down his spine. That was because he saw the words engraved on the blade. Xianyuan. Long time no see. Yi Zichen gently stroked the blade's scabbard. Only now did his face reveal some semblance of expression. Sorry to keep you waiting. With another low murmur, Yi Zichen brushed the scabbard. The blade trembled violently, then struggled free of his grip. At the same time, a golden longsword emerged from between Yi Zichen's brows. The longsword circled around him a few times, and actually flew towards the blade that had broken free from his grip. Fuse. In an instant, the longsword released a radiance as dazzling as the sun. Everyone covered their foreheads, not daring to look directly at it. Black Dragon knit his brows. Die. A streak of white bone emerged from between his eyebrows to block out the light. Then, borrowing the blinding light, he clawed at Yi Zichen's chest like a black tiger digs out its heart. Whoosh! The blade hovering in the air suddenly fell to the ground, but Yi Zichen caught it with lightning speed. Ding! The longsword in front of his chest blocked Black Dragon's hand. A second later, Yi Zichen kicked forward, unsheathed his sword, and swung it horizontally. The golden sword chi sliced through the falling rain, and the Black Dragon, who sensed the danger, kept retreating. White bones crisscrossed. Dong. The sword energy slammed into White Bone's bone shield. Countless cracks spread across its surface until it shattered. The shield broke. When they saw this, the people outside Dragon City paused briefly, then let out excited cheers. Previously, no one had been able to leave a single mark on Black Dragon's bone shield, but Yi Zichen's sword energy had directly shattered it. Victory was assured. This thought flashed through everyone's minds. As soon as it appeared, it took root in their hearts. Victory was assured. Victory was assured. Little boy Yi, I didn't misjudge you. Just as the sword light descended, a woman's excited cry rang out in Yi Zichen's sea of consciousness. Back then, I risked my life to save you. I knew that you would definitely be a good kid, and that you would be able to reconstruct my sword body. I didn't expect you to give me such a pleasant surprise. You actually fused your godhood with it. Wow, I'm going to fall in love with you. What should I do? What should I do? This excitement naturally came from the Xianyuan sword's sword spirit, Xianyuan Xiang. When he sensed her excitement, Yi Zichen pursed his lips into a gratified smile. Alright, let's talk about this later. Just now, your sword slash was too weak and only broke my shield. This sword, I want you to cut him in half. No problem. Xianyuan Xiang put her hands on her hips and snorted. Just now I had just reconstructed it, so I didn't have much strength left. This time, I'll definitely cut him in two. Alright. Yi Zichen nodded calmly, then gripped the hilt of his sword and fixed his gaze on Black Dragon. Heaven plundering style. He slashed out vertically. His golden shoulder, fully 300 meters long, cleaved the earth below him in two. Unstoppable sword energy swept towards Black Dragon. This is impossible, this is impossible. At that moment, Black Dragon was still immersed in the trauma of his shattered bone shield. He shook his head repeatedly and muttered to himself. Suddenly, a flash of gold entered his eyes. Crash! The white bones on his body wriggled and wove into a net in front of him. But His invincible white bones hadn't blocked the sword light for him. No. Black Dragon watched as the sword light tore his bone net to shreds. Then, the sword light sliced right through his body. He was cut in two. No one could have imagined that Black Dragon would die just like that. The people of Dragon City stared blankly at the scene. It was a long time before they came to their senses. It's over? They couldn't help but look at each other. They saw undisguised shock in each other's eyes. When the sword light slammed into a distant mountain range, when the two halves of Black Dragon fell to the ground, when Black Dragon's spiritual pressure disappeared from Dragon City. It was over. It was really over. Even though there were still remnants of the demon race in the distance, as long as the Black Dragon was dead, they wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. However, they couldn't bring themselves to smile. They had lost too much for this outcome. The sacred race patriarch had fallen, and his clansmen had died in battle. In the instant that the Black Dragon died, they thought of those who had died. You can rest in peace. We have secured the future. Many people cried. Some secretly wiped their tears, and some knelt on the ground and wailed. But no matter what, after all it was all over. As Yi Zichen watched Black Dragon die, he laughed self-deprecatingly. Talk about loss, he probably has more than anyone else. Yi Zichen turned his head indifferently. Xianyuan Xiang was still chattering away in his sea of consciousness, but when she sensed Yi Zichen's depression, she obediently shut up and didn't disturb him. My lord! The demons roared, eyes bloodshot, then gnashed their teeth and attacked Yi Zichen. Swoosh! What greeted them were countless sword lights, and they were all cut in half. The demon race had come to an end. Run! In the distance, when Gu Li saw Black Dragon die, he instinctively tried to run. However, he soon discovered that the zombie progenitors were even faster than he was. How could he have gotten so strong? How is this possible? As Gu Li fled, the image of Yi Zichen killing Black Dragon flashed through his mind. That was a Sky Supreme Black Dragon. Just how strong did Yi Zichen have to be able to kill a Sky Supreme in one blow? Even if he was using the Xianyuan sword, there was no way he could have reached this level. He had to run. Given his relationship with Yi Zichen, staying behind would absolutely spell certain death. Damn it, why didn't the lightning tribulation kill him? Gu Li cursed incessantly in his heart. If only the lightning tribulation had struck him dead, then none of this would have happened. And that Black Dragon too. Why did he have to act all pretentious? Villains died because they talked too much. Didn't he know that? Words could no longer satisfy Gu Li's inwardly cursing. His feet seemed to pick up the wind as he dashed madly toward the edge of the beast region. However, a voice that filled him with despair rang out in his ears. Freeze! Instantly, he could no longer take another step forward. At that moment, he saw a figure in ragged clothes land in front of him. When he saw him, Gu Li couldn't help but close his eyes. Chapter 1009. Why was he crying? The rain parted as it fell on Yi Zichen's head. Gu Li's lips trembled uncontrollably as he looked at the indifferent Yi Zichen. Big brother Yi, your little brother knows his wrongs. Since we're family, let me off this once. I'll definitely turn over a new leaf. I know my wrongs. I really know my wrongs. Please spare me this once. If not for the body freezing art, Gu Li would have knelt before Yi Zichen. He was truly afraid. Die. Yi Zichen didn't want to waste any more words with him, nor did he want to listen to his hypocritical apologies. A ray of sword light appeared between his fingers and sliced towards Gu Li's neck. Boom! Above the void, a huge hand that blotted out the sky suddenly slammed down from the sky. This hand obviously wasn't trying to kill anyone. Its goal was clear. It was coming for Gu Li. Yi Zichen stopped in place and let go of the Xianyuan sword. He'd long since predicted that someone from the upper three realms would save Gu Li. As for the reason, he had the Qiyu sword on him. If you want to save him, leave your hand behind. His eyes flashed, and hundreds of beams of sword light shot out of the Xianyuan sword. A muffled snort echoed through the sky. The giant hand clenched its fist and crushed the beams of sword light. Then, it instantly changed its target and slammed towards Yi Zichen. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Zichen somersaulted backwards, then raised his right hand. The Xianyuan sword, which had escaped his grasp, returned to him as if summoned. He gripped the hilt and brushed his fingers across the blade. Attract lightning. Rumble. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky and merged into the sword. The Xianyuan sword flickered with lightning. Thunderfall slash. The sword light, which was accompanied by lightning, landed on the sky-covering hand. However, the sword light did not cause any damage to the hand. Ha! The hand's owner seemed to be mocking Yi Zichen's ignorance. However, the next instant the hand's movements slowed. This move wasn't meant to attack, but to paralyze him. At the same time, Yi Zichen raised the Xianyuan sword above his head. Heaven plundering strike! All of a sudden, a dazzling golden sword light shot out from the blade, and the already paralyzed giant hand tried to dodge it. Sizzle. Dark red blood spurted out from his hand, and then he saw that the little finger of the big hand had already been chopped off by the sword light. Brat, I will remember you! A sinister, furious roar reverberated through the sky. Then, they saw a hand grab at Guli, then vanish from this world. What a pity! Despite letting Guli escape, Yi Zichen didn't seem too angry. With the help of an expert, there was nothing to be angry about if he ran away. It would be impossible to kill Guli in front of such an expert. He glanced at the finger below. At the very least, he made that expert leave a finger behind, right? All right, tell him to focus on recuperating when he gets back. His soul has dissipated before. If there's time, the Deer Emperor and the Sparrow Emperor can help him search for it. Who knows, they might be able to find the lost soul. He removed his hand from the Bear Emperor's chest. With Yi Zichen's help, the hole he'd pierced through his chest had already healed. However, the Bear Emperor's soul had dissipated somewhat, so he'd fallen unconscious after returning to his body. Thank you for your help, Emperor Yi. The Deer Emperor bowed gratefully. The three of them had a close relationship. If the Bear Emperor died, they couldn't imagine what that would be like. Yi Zichen reached out and helped him to his feet, then shook his head. I should be the one thanking you. If not for your help, it might have been too late even if I returned. The Deer Emperor smiled and nodded, then helped the Bear Emperor to his feet. Since Emperor Yi has returned, the Bear Emperor needs to rest, so we won't disturb you any longer. We'll take our leave first. Take care. Yi Zichen watched the three emperors leave, then turned to the battlefield outside Dragon City. Clansmen of the various clans were carrying their fallen back home. They died for the three realms. No matter what, they couldn't be allowed to remain here. They had to return their fallen clansmen to their clans. That was the only place they could rest. Emperor Yi. At that moment, he heard a woman's voice from behind him. Yi Zichen turned around and saw Li Jiai and a group of human experts standing in front of him. Jai. Li Jiai nodded at her, then said meticulously, "We've already gathered everyone. Everyone here is a sky immortal or higher expert. Dealing with the remnants of the demon army shouldn't be a problem at all." "All right, thank you for your hard work." He still looked indifferent. Li Jiai wanted to say something to him when she saw his expression. However, she forcefully swallowed the words she was about to say. Without another word, she led her experts away from the beast region. After they left, the three Su sisters appeared before Yi Zichen. Big Sister Luer, Big Sister Zhu. Yi Zichen nodded at Su Luer and Su Zhu, but when his gaze fell on Su Yan, he fell silent. He could see Su Yan's loneliness and grief on her face. Images of his hand piercing Su Yun's chest flashed through his mind. After a while, he let out a long sigh. Lil Yan. Su Yan forced a smile at Yi Zichen, but her actions only made Yi Zichen feel even more uncomfortable. Compared to this, he preferred Su Yan crying. In truth, Su Yan wanted to cry as well, but she couldn't. Everything has finally come to an end, hasn't it? Su Lu broke the silence. She reached out and tousled Su Yan's hair, then smiled at Su Zhu. Little sister's tired. Lil Zhu, take her back to rest. All right. Su Zhu smiled and nodded, then grabbed Su Yan's hand. Little sister, let's go. We're going home. Home. When she heard that word, Su Yan's nose twitched inexplicably. Tears welled up in her eyes. She forcefully held back her tears, lowered her head, and left with Su Zhu. She's been like this ever since I woke up, said Su Lu as she watched them leave. That's right. Yi Zichen nodded. Sensing that his expression wasn't too good, Su Lu frowned. What's going on with little sister? I asked Lil Zhu, but she wouldn't tell me. All I saw was her holding that demon. OL 3 isn't a demon. Yi Zichen cut her off coldly. His lips twitched and he said, You're right. Big sister Lu, I have other things to take care of, so I can't chat with you any longer. Hey you brat! Su Lu furrowed her brows and shouted angrily, but at that moment, she saw a single tear fall from the corner of Yi Zichen's eye. Chapter 10:10. It's time to end this. Did we win? Yi Zichen looked at the corpses strewn across Dragon City and the blood-stained sky. Behind him, some of the Beast Region's survivors rejoiced at their survival, while others, like Yi Zichen, stared silently at the sky and inhaled the lingering stench of blood. Their hands trembled uncontrollably. After countless sighs, Yi Zichen's gaze landed on Li Min-yi, who was crouched on the ground, her hair disheveled. Min-yi, when his hand came into contact with Li Min-yi's shoulder, a bone-piercing chill came from his fingers. Li Min-yi sat paralyzed on the ground. She looked up at him with lifeless eyes. Blood trickled from the corners of her mouth. Then she lowered her head, rubbed a diamond ring in her hand, and said nothing. When Yi Zichen saw the familiar marriage proposal, he felt as if someone were squeezing his heart and suffocating it. At that moment, he had no idea how to comfort this demon woman. My condolences. After a long while, that was all Yi Zichen could muster. Li Min-yi trembled violently, then burst into heart-wrenching sobs. Off in the distance, little Lori sat on a broken boulder, swinging her fair little legs. There was no trace of the ferocity she'd displayed during the bloody battle. She was as obedient as a neighbor's little sister. She was as pure as a sheet of white paper, and had no other emotions. She was a herbman. She didn't have the complex emotions of humans. She simply knew that Yi Zichen, who'd given her candy, had told her that those guys were bad people, and that she was going to teach them a lesson. Once the lesson was over, she'd be eating candy or not. Little Lori. Right at this moment, a deep call rang out in little Lori's mind. She blinked, turned around, and saw Yi Zichen looking at her. Hee, give me candy. Whoosh. Like a gust of wind, little Lori arrived by Yi Zichen's side. She reached out and raised her head proudly, like a child. She didn't say anything, but her expression told Yi Zichen. I beat up so many bad guys. You have to reward me. Yi Zichen reached out and rubbed Xiao Lori's head, then took out a few bottles of pills and placed them in her hands. Hee. Seeing the candy she liked, Xiao Yuli smiled foolishly. She skipped away, but when she turned around, she frowned and turned back. What happened to you? Simplicity didn't mean ignorance. She could sense the sorrow permeating the air, especially from Yi Zichen. However, unlike the others, she didn't feel any desire to live from Yi Zichen at all. Yi Zichen was indeed standing there. He was still alive, but his heart was dead. Didn't we win? Little Lori blinked and asked. Yes, we won. Liuli's contribution was not small. Yi Zichen reached out and pinched her cheek. Lori giggled happily, but before long she frowned and asked, What's wrong? Then why are you unhappy? No, I'm very happy. Yi Zichen forced a smile. I'll give you a mission. This mission can be exchanged for a lot of candy. Jelly beans. Hearing that it was candy, Liuli's eyes lit up. Her eyes sparkled with hope as she looked at Yi Zichen and nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. What mission? Just this one sentence made her toss her previous question to the highest heavens. How wonderful! Yizichin couldn't help but sigh inwardly when he saw little Lori's lively appearance. Sometimes this kind of simplicity could save people a lot of trouble. Yizichin pressed his lips into a smile, then pointed at Li Min-yi, who sat paralyzed on the ground, still crying. Take good care of this big sister. If anyone tries to bully her, tell them that big brother Zichin wants to protect her. Got it? She's a bad person. Little Lori could tell from her aura that Li Min-yi was a demon. Yizichin had told her before that demons were all bad people. She didn't understand why Li Min-yi wanted to protect her now. She's different. With that, Yizichin took out a few dozen bottles of pills and hung them in the air. Take care of her. This is your reward. All right. Little Lori excitedly put away the pills, then ran towards Li Min-yi. However, Li Min-yi pushed her aside and stumbled off into the distance. Big sister. This was her mission. If she ran, she might lose the pills. Little Lori was frantic. She wanted to chase after her, but all she got was, "If you get any closer, I'll kill you." Li Min-yi's scarlet eyes, brimming with killing intent, froze little Lori in shock. After intimidating her, Li Min-yi turned around and continued stumbling forward. From time to time, she would laugh inexplicably. Little Lori stood rooted to the ground. She pouted and scratched her cheeks. Forget it. He'd only taken care of Li Min-yi out of respect for Suyun. Since she'd made her own choice, Yizichin wouldn't insist. Then, little Lori pouted and fiddled with her lips. How could Yizichin not see through her thoughts? I'll still give you the pills. Really? Little Lori didn't quite believe him. Really? When she saw Yizichin nod with certainty, she ran over excitedly and clung onto him like a koala. You're a good person. All right, come down. I have other business to take care of. Go play with Goyujan. All right. She skipped away. Yizichin sensed her joy and couldn't help but feel envious of her paper-thin life. In the blink of an eye, his gaze grew cold and sinister. He flipped his hand and produced a seal. This seal was the Lord of the Three Realms realm seal. He closed his eyes. Instantly, the seal radiated blinding light. The light rippled outwards like a ripple, as if enveloping the entire three realms. Outside the cloudy palace of the Golden Arches, the ancestral mark on the heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's forehead flickered. This inscription was unique to his clan. It burned its blood essence in exchange for supreme power. Little brother, you're still far from it. Suddenly, a suffocating spiritual pressure erupted from the heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's body. Standing across from him, the North Pole Emperor did the same. The inscription on his forehead burned his blood essence. However, his purple robes were already drenched in blood. He retreated repeatedly. He was going to lose. Even so, the North Pole Emperor didn't retreat. He couldn't retreat either. Bang! He bent his right knee. Boundless spiritual energy instantly pierced through the ground beneath his knee, shattering the heavenly quartz ground. He had also turned into a bolt of lightning as he punched out. He'd missed. The heavenly quartz immortals froze. The heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity really had disappeared. However, before they could react, they saw a beam of light envelop them. This farce has to end. Chapter 10-11. The ones who judge you. The light enveloped not only the heavenly court, but also the 8 ghost marshals of the underworld, who were summoning ghost kings in the immortal region, the ghost emperor and Emperor Bain Necropolis, and the immortal region, which was in civil strife. The moment the light enveloped them, they couldn't resist and let it devour them. Vanish. White. Pure, flawless white. Pure light flickered incessantly in the empty space. One figure after another landed in this space. No matter who it was, they all froze and frowned at their surroundings. When they saw that their previous enemies had also appeared. Leopard Tail, the marshal of the underworld, hesitated only for a brief moment. When he saw Oxhead, his eyes reddened and he charged. The previous battle had left him bloodshot. He didn't care where he was, or why he'd appeared here. His goal was to kill Oxhead. Humph! Oxhead snorted, but just as he was about to counterattack, slap! A crisp slap echoed through the space. Leopard Tail, who'd charged at Oxhead, coughed up blood and spun like a top. Thud! There were no obstacles around him, but a muffled thud rang out. His entire person was in a daze from the collision, and he was in a daze. Who is it? Shaking his head, Leopard Tail shouted darkly, trying to keep his head clear. However, despite his rage, he didn't lose his reason or move recklessly. Instead, he carefully reached out and touched his surroundings. There were restrictions. Before his hand could move very far, he felt as if he'd touched an invisible wall. His angry shout roused everyone in the space. They stared in shock at the people from the various realms who'd landed nearby. Although their eyes were bloodshot at the sight of their previous enemies, they didn't act rashly because of Leopard Tail's warning. Instead, they reached out and touched their surroundings. There were restrictions everywhere. No matter who it was, they seemed to be trapped in a spatial cage, with no more than a square meter of space to move around. Everyone's minds were filled with confusion about this space and the restrictions around them. It wasn't that they hadn't tried to break through the restrictions, but they'd discovered that the spatial laws they'd once been so adept at didn't respond in the slightest here. This place looks like a land of contention. Within the underworld, the Necropolis Great Emperor of the North frowned. This familiar suppression and this pure white world was very similar to the struggle for supremacy back then. When the Necropolis Emperor of the Bane looked around, he sensed several gazes directed at him. After a brief exchange, the owner of these countless gazes knew. The other two realms were going through the same thing. The demons sure are generous. Immortal Domains Swarenshi couldn't help but snort. He lowered his eyes and looked at the people around him. With his experience, he could immediately tell who the traitors of the other two realms were. Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity, Ghost Emperor. I never would have guessed that even existences of your level would walk down the wrong path. As for the Ghost Commanders and the traitorous Count of Wind and Lord of Rain, none of them were worth mentioning. Humph, don't even think of associating this Emperor with the Devil race. I'm different from your people. They are blinded by greed. What I seek is a supreme realm. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity snorted coldly. His proud and aloof temperament wouldn't tolerate others slandering him. In the end, you still betrayed us, didn't you? What's the point of saying so much? Sneered the Fengdu Emperor. I don't want to waste my breath on a servant boy of the underworld. What kind of seniority was the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity? He was his grandmother's son. Although the Fengdu Emperor of the North was the underworld's second-in-command in his eyes, he was nothing more than an ant. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity is still as arrogant as ever. The Fengdu Emperor of the North wasn't angered by the Heavenly Emperor's disdain. He merely smiled calmly, then touched the barrier around him. I just don't know if you'll still be so arrogant in a little while. So what if I do? Laughed the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity arrogantly. You've lost. The Fengdu Emperor of the North had already seen through everything. Before the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity could even reveal his disdain, stomp, stomp, stomp. The sound of stomping footsteps carried with them a powerful penetrating force that reached everyone's ears. Everyone's attention was drawn to the footsteps. They followed the sound and saw Yi Zichen, his clothes stained with blood that hadn't dried yet. His hair was charred black, and he slowly walked out of the mist. He could have flown here. Even if he walked, the sound of his footsteps shouldn't have reached everyone's ears. The only reason everyone could hear his footsteps was because he'd done it on purpose. Every step he took seemed to trample on the rebels' hearts, crushing them so hard they couldn't even breathe. Emperor Yi. Those who recognized Yi Zichen cried out in surprise, then smiled in relief. They were free. For some reason, the instant they saw Yi Zichen, their tense nerves relaxed. However, the expressions of the traitors all turned cold. Aside from the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity, they all knew that Yi Zichen was currently entangled with the demons. Now that he'd appeared, that meant the demons had lost. Among them, Xiaoringqiu's expression was the most complicated. When he'd first appeared, he'd been terrified. Now that he saw Yi Zichen, he panicked even more. All he could do was try his best not to expose himself to Yi Zichen's line of sight, or to avoid looking ahead. To reassure himself, Emperor Yi? When the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity heard their cries of alarm, he frowned and looked over. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity hadn't paid much attention to the outside world. The only people he knew were those who'd been famous for a long time. He didn't even know the Beast Region's Empress, Su Lu, not to mention Yi Zichen. "Who are you?" As he spoke, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity maintained his arrogant gaze. He stopped. He paid no attention to the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's questions. With a wave of his hand, a chair appeared before Yi Zichen. He sat down indifferently and tapped the void with his finger. Countless curtains appeared, and on them were the scenes of the people fighting in the arena. From start to finish, nothing was missing. Not even the sound of their breathing was lost in the curtains. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity frowned. When Yi Zichen revealed this level of strength, even he had no choice but to take him seriously. However, his arrogant nature made him look down on everyone. "Who are you? How dare you ignore my questions?" roared the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. After a while, he'd seen all the curtains, then Yi Zichen dispersed them. He looked calmly at the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity, or rather, at everyone present. Chapter 10-12. The Arrogant Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. Yi Zichen's eyes flashed with indifference. His sinister tone caused everyone present to shiver as if they'd fallen into a bottomless abyss. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's heart couldn't help but clench. Just as that gaze landed on him, what he heard in his heart was clearly fear. For hundreds of thousands of years, since its birth, it had never felt fear. His fingers were trembling slightly, and his heart was beating wildly. His back was also covered in a thin layer of sweat. Shameless boasting! After a long silence, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity furrowed his brows and shouted angrily. Judgment! He was the son of his grandmother and cultivated the Supreme Great Tao. From the moment he was born, he was revered by tens of thousands of people and enjoyed the incense of billions of people. No one in the three realms could compare to his demonic aptitude. Now, this kid who came out of nowhere was talking nonsense here, saying that he was going to put him on trial. Ridiculous. Arrogant. Dream on. You want to trap me with a mere restriction? Dream on. As his tyrannical words fell, the crowd watched as the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's silver eyes flashed. His right hand leaned forward and pressed against the invisible barrier. A faint pitch-black vortex appeared in his palm, accompanied by the devouring power of destruction. This, the surrounding immortals couldn't help but click their tongues. After the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity attacked, the cage imprisoning him actually began to collapse. One had to know that none of the people present had any way to destroy this cage. As expected of the destruction Great Tao, even though Taiji stood on the opposite side, the North Pole Emperor and the others still couldn't help but sigh in admiration. They were all outstanding talent. If they didn't have astonishing talent, it would have been impossible for them to reach their current level. However, they still walked the ordinary Great Tao of the 3,000 Taoist scriptures. It couldn't be helped, the Great Tao was hard to seek. Who could guarantee that they would be able to make a name for themselves by taking the Great Tao? Moreover, the Jade Emperor was a living example. He had walked the ordinary path, yet he was still the first one among them to ascend to godhood. While sighing, some people couldn't help but worry. For example, the god of thunder, Neza, and other immortals who had been on good terms with Yi Zichen in the past. As members of the heavenly court, they knew how powerful the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity was. If this great emperor managed to break free, then Yi Zichen would. Just so. When the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity saw that the grand Tao of destruction was effective, his eyes filled with disdain. Just wait till I break through this, I'll definitely kill you to stabilize my Tao heart. The heavenly emperor of supreme polarity said arrogantly, then looked at Yi Zichen with a sinister gaze. However, what caused his heart to waver was that Yi Zichen merely looked at him with an indifferent expression. It was as if the other party didn't care about his actions at all, and upon closer inspection, there was even a hint of encouragement. Of course, there was another color that he did not understand. What he did not know, what he did not understand, was pity. In Yi Zichen's eyes, this arrogant heavenly emperor of supreme polarity was nothing but a pitiful fellow. Great Tao of destruction. As expected of the supreme great Taos of the 3,000 Taoist scriptures, they could still be used even in this space. Ordinary people might not be able to find any clues on this path, even if they spent their entire life. However, he had chosen to cultivate this Tao with such determination. This showed how proud he was. Moreover, he had even tried to pry into the great Tao. From this, it could be seen how great his aptitude was. However, in the end, he had yet to truly comprehend the meaning of destruction. Destruction was annihilation. When the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity could only maintain a palm-sized vortex of destruction, Yi Zichen had already lost interest in him. His definition and understanding of destruction were far too narrow. Just wait till I break through this seal. I'd like to see if you can still sit still. He frowned. The black vortex in his hand continuously destroyed the surrounding space. In order to escape as quickly as possible, the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity focused all his attention on the vortex. However, what's going on? The heavenly emperor of supreme polarity's heart trembled. Then he felt the tear he'd expended so much effort to tear open heal in the space of a single breath. After that, his annihilation couldn't keep up with the seal's healing speed. Instantly, Yi Zichen's gaze surfaced in the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity's mind. That gaze was filled with complex emotions. That emotion he couldn't understand was actually pity. Are you pitying this emperor? I don't need your pity. The heavenly emperor of supreme polarity roared inwardly. He mustered all his strength to break through the seal. Yi Zichen looked at him and smiled calmly. Then he looked away, no longer paying any attention to the heavenly emperor of supreme polarity, who was on the verge of going mad. Instead, he turned to the immortals below and said, I already know everything about you. I know exactly who among you are traitors and who are the protectors of the realm. As he spoke, rainbow-colored clouds appeared above the immortals' heads. I am the ruler of the three realms, yet I failed to resolve your problems as soon as possible. This is my dereliction of duty. Now I shall bestow upon you a stroke of good fortune. The seal around you has been lifted as well. This place will no longer restrict your movements. Countless beams of rainbow light descended, enveloping the immortals who'd bathed in blood for the sake of protecting the realm. So comfortable. Little Neza, his face covered in blood, couldn't help but mutter to himself. Heavenly Kingly, who'd fallen unconscious from his battle with the Count of Wind and Lord of Rain, was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths of time, aside from the bloodstains on his body, there was no longer any trace of injury. That wasn't all. As they healed, the immortals' strength rose without end, and they broke through the shackles of their cultivation without the slightest hindrance. What was even more exaggerated was that among those almighty beings who had long since reached the celestial king stage, many of them had actually touched the barrier to becoming gods. However, this place obstructed the heavenly Tao. If they left, they'd have to undergo divine tribulation. Thank you, Emperor Yi. The immortals kowtowed. Yi Zichen didn't respond. He simply waved at them, separating them from the traitors. After experiencing Yi Zichen's heaven-defying methods, the once arrogant traitors couldn't help but frown. Although they didn't make it too obvious, deep down they all knew. Their path had already come to an end. However, at least they had some backbone. Not a single one of them begged for mercy. They understood the principle of winner takes all. The moment they took this step, there was no turning back. They didn't believe that Yi Zichen would spare them if they begged for mercy. Since they were going to die anyway, they might as well die with some backbone. The traitors stared intently at Yi Zichen. Emperor Yi, how do you want to deal with them? Asked the North Pole Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity is my older brother, and he hasn't colluded with the demons. I wonder if… That's right, there's also our immortal regions. Emperor Yi, our underworld's heavenly palaces palace gods are actually… The people of the underworld, heavenly court, and immortal region continuously pleaded for mercy on behalf of those left behind, but all they got in return was Yi Zichen's merciless rebuke. Shut up. Chapter 10:13. Seeking Death? Yi Zichen's fierce gaze swept over the immortals. When they met his gaze, they couldn't help but lower their heads, not daring to meet his gaze. The immortals who were more familiar with Yi Zichen were stunned by his rebuke. As far as they knew, Yi Zichen wasn't someone with such a temperament. How I sentence them isn't up to you. All you need to do is watch from the sidelines. Yi Zichen's words were cold and detached. As soon as he appeared, the immortals' hearts sank. Emperor Yi. Some of the immortals couldn't help but speak up to plead for mercy. Although it was undeniable that all of them were traitors of the various realms, many of them had done so out of desperation. However, there were also quite a number of people who were forced to do so or for other reasons. They were not evil beyond redemption. Enough. Yi Zichen's voice was tinged with anger. He looked coldly at the distant immortals and laughed inexplicably. You're still pleading for mercy on their behalf? These are the people who once stood against you with their swords? Then you really are kind, or should I say hypocritical. Not long ago, they wanted to make you your mortal enemies. Now you want to plead for mercy on their behalf? Being soft-hearted will only invite calamity upon you. There's no need to tell me that some of them were forced to do so, or that they were somehow related to you. In my eyes, they're all traitors. No matter how many reasons you have, you can't erase their betrayal. From the moment they made that decision, they were no longer the family and friends you once were. The immortals didn't know what to say. Those who knew Yi Zichen found it even harder to believe such cold words would come from his mouth. Indeed, this was far from Yi Zichen's usual temperament. However, during his recent battle with the demons, he truly understood this principle. No matter how much you backed down, no one would show you mercy or forgive you. Take the heavenly lightning for example. Yi Zichen was on the verge of dissipating his spiritual energy, but did it stop? No. Spare them? If not for their betrayal, the immortal region, underworld, and heavenly court would have sent reinforcements to Dragon City. If that were the case, would the result have been so tragic? Even though these people weren't from the Shao family of the God Clan, their actions were no different from the Shao family's lightning. If he let them go, would Kiki come back to life? If he let them go, would Su Yun come back to life? If he let them go, would the Beast Region's sacred Beast Clan head and Hua Hai come back to life? If he let them go, would those dead soldiers be able to come back to life? For a moment, Yi Zichen's eyes reddened. There was no way he could face Kiki and Su Yun's deaths with such indifference. Nor could he be indifferent to the warriors who sacrificed their lives for this war. No matter what their identities and statuses were, or what reason they had, they stood against the three realms. A life had to be repaid with one's life. These people would have to pay with their lives for those who had died. After countless failed attempts to break the shackles, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity gave up on the idea. Emperor Ziwei's plea for leniency on his behalf was like a sharp thorn in his ears. His pride couldn't be trampled on by Emperor Ziwei. Plead for mercy? He didn't need it. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity sneered when he saw Ziwei's troubled expression. Ziwei, don't pretend to be righteous. With that, his gaze landed on Yi Zichen and he snorted. I did betray you. What can you do to me? If you have the means to kill us, then do it quickly. This emperor's dignity isn't something you can trample on. If all you're capable of is trapping me here, then given enough time, I'll definitely be able to break free. When that happens, I'll still be the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. I'll still be the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. I'll still be the supreme ruler everyone looks up to. Arrogant. This was Yi Zichen's evaluation of the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity after their brief encounter. Only someone with the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's temperament could say such arrogant words at a time like this. He was arrogant, he was so arrogant that no one could enter his eyes. If this kind of person was given enough time, he might really be able to stand at the peak of the myriad worlds. But, unfortunately, he didn't. All of you deserve to die. He was very calm. When Yi Zichen said this, his voice was as calm as autumn waters. He didn't specifically name anyone to judge. Instead, he sentenced them all to death. The multicolored light condensing in the sky dissipated. In the blink of an eye, inky clouds covered the sky. Dull thunder rumbled in the clouds. The remaining rebels didn't show much emotion as they looked at the thunderclouds in the sky. Lightning punishment descend. In truth, Yi Zichen had countless ways to end their lives, but he'd chosen to use heavenly lightning to destroy them. He didn't even know why he'd chosen this method. Perhaps the lightning tribulation had inadvertently made him choose this method. As soon as he spoke, countless purple lightning dragons descended from the clouds. Lightning dragons roared through the sky. The scene was so shocking that it left everyone dumbfounded. The immortals watching from afar couldn't help but close their eyes in shock. As for the traitors who'd been preparing to face the lightning, their expressions were calm. As they watched, Xiangqiu of the dragon race looked up and spread his arms. He had no complaints about this death. Boom! Countless lightning dragons descended, giving rise to loud rumbles. However, the berserk power of lightning remained within the imprisonment of the traitors, constantly venting its might in the midst of the imprisonment. After a long while, when the lightning dragon in the confinement dissipated, the people who responded to the lightning had already fallen to the ground without the slightest trace of life. When they saw this, the immortals couldn't help but feel pained. Even more than that, they sighed with regret. They had no way of criticizing Yi Zichen's decision. All they could say was, those traitors had chosen the wrong path. But very quickly, someone noticed that the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity was still standing proudly in the midst of the traitors who'd fallen like autumn wheat. It wasn't that he'd withstood it, rather, the lightning hadn't descended on him at all. What do you want? Don't even think about humiliating me. All I want is death. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity snorted defiantly. He raised his head proudly, as if nothing in the world could make him lower his proud head. Off in the distance, the North Pole Emperor's eyes lit up. Could it be? You want to die? Yi Zichen's gaze landed on the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. When their gazes met, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity didn't back down in the slightest. Even more incredulous, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's gaze was disdainful. That's right. All I want is death. Chapter 10:14. Do you know my identity? Yi Zichen ignored the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's gaze. From the way he spoke and the way the surrounding immortals looked at him, Yi Zichen could tell what kind of person he was. Proud and aloof? That was a nicer way to put it. To put it bluntly, he was arrogant, conceited, and looked down on everyone else. Yi Zichen already knew what the immortals were up to. Whether it was subjective or objective, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's punishment wasn't death. Furthermore, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity was the top existence in the Heavenly Court, and his grandmother stood behind him. Even if his grandmother had already transformed into heaven and earth and blessed all living things, he still couldn't do anything about it. Yi Zichen rose to his feet and slowly walked over until he was about half a meter away from the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. As he rose to his feet, the distant immortals couldn't help but arch their brows. Although Yi Zichen appeared indifferent, they had a feeling that whatever happened next wouldn't be as calm as he appeared. You're actually different from the rest of these traitors. I know all this. In my heart, my trial for you isn't to take your life. The lightning punishment just now has already proven everything. In truth, I wanted to make you face the wall for 3,000 years as a form of repentance. Yi Zichen looked indifferently into the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's silver eyes. His words were exactly what he'd thought. However, the Heavenly Emperor's reply had changed his mind. But since you're bent on seeking death, I'll fulfill your wish. His tone was still soft, but it was like a sledgehammer hammering down on the distant immortals' hearts. Death sentence. They didn't think Yi Zichen was just trying to scare the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. Based on the Heavenly Emperor's cold gaze, they could tell that he really was going to be sentenced to death. That's right, he was going to be sentenced to death. Didn't the Heavenly Emperor want to die? Then let him die. Ha ha ha! The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity, who was still trapped in his cage, suddenly laughed. He didn't seem afraid in the slightest. Instead, he looked ahead mockingly. I'm afraid that won't do. Let him die. This might be the funniest joke the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity had ever heard since he was born. How could he order him to die so casually? What a joke. Do you know who this emperor is? This emperor is the son of grandmother. I am protected by the Grand Tao and am impervious to all technique. I am the sovereign of all things in the world. You want to sentence me to death? Young man, your methods are indeed worthy of this emperor's attention. But you want to sentence me to death? Aren't you afraid that you'll cut your tongue? The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's gaze darkened. Then he shrugged disdainfully and snorted. All right, since you have the ability to kill me, then please begin. This emperor would like to see whether this emperor will live or die in the end. This emperor's words are still the same. You're begging for death. If you really have those methods, feel free to use them. But if you don't, when I break out, I'll definitely take your head to solidify my Tao heart. He flung his sleeves angrily. With that, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity turned his head indifferently, completely ignoring Yi Zichen. For him, the fact that he'd said so much was already the greatest respect he could give Yi Zichen. As for being sentenced to death, just wait to be slapped in the face. As the son of grandmother, he'd been tempered by heavenly fire and lightning since he was a child. After hundreds of thousands of years, he'd long since reached the point where he was impervious to all technique. To him, heavenly lightning was nothing more than a tempering agent, while heavenly fire was nothing more than nourishment for his soul. Both his body and soul had long since reached the point where they couldn't be killed. Trying to kill him was a fool's dream. The other immortals were visibly moved. They hadn't expected the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity to still be so unruly and unruly. However, the North Pole Emperor couldn't help but sigh. If this were an ordinary person, his older brother would naturally be undying. But the one standing before him was Yi Zichen, the master of the three realms, Yi Zichen, son of grandmother. Yi Zichen nodded. No matter how sharp the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's words were, Yi Zichen remained unperturbed. As the Lady Mother of the Chariot's eldest son, you're worthy of the tone you used just now. It's true that within the three realms, you really might be undying. But let me ask you again. Do you know who this emperor is? I don't care who you are, laughed the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity arrogantly. Yi Zichen couldn't help but shake his head at his unbridled tone. He clasped his hands behind his back and gazed pitifully at the trapped Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. He couldn't help but sigh. Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity, you're truly too arrogant. Have you ever wondered why I can control heavenly lightning? Why I could summon all of you here? Why can't you use your comprehension of heaven and earth here? Why can't someone as strong as you be? Why is it that even someone as tyrannical as you can only remain trapped in this spatial prison? Inside the cage, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's expression went from disdain to solemnity. His silver, sword-like brows knit together. You've never considered any of this, because your arrogant and conceited temperament makes you disdainful of everyone else. Your confidence and confidence are all founded on the fact that you're the eldest son of grandmother, and that you're impervious to all techniques. But have you ever considered that there's always someone stronger than you? This string of questions finally caused the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity to lose his composure. Just as he was about to turn around and berate Yi Zichen, out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of an octagonal command medallion in Yi Zichen's hand. The seal of the three realms was engraved in golden characters. Instantly, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's pupils constricted. In order to confirm the seal's authenticity, he looked at it unabashedly. Yi Zichen didn't try to hide anything. He openly unfurled the seal. Impossible! Inside the cage, the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity took a step back. He reached out and pointed at the seal, his eyes filled with astonishment. The first master of the three realms had been his mother, the Lady Mother of the Chariot. He was naturally no stranger to this seal. Of course, he also knew exactly what it represented. "Why is the seal of the Master of the Three Realms in your hands?" roared the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity. When his mother had the seal, the three realms had just been established and needed to intimidate all races. After his mother stepped down, the seal had been sealed away. No one knew where it had gone. It hadn't appeared in the world for hundreds of thousands of years, so how could it have appeared here? He wasn't afraid of the position of Master of the Three Realms. He was afraid of the seal. When the Lady Mother of the Chariot stepped down and sealed the seal, she'd placed 70% of her spiritual power within it. The Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity was arrogant, but he knew full well that forget 70% of Lady Mother of the Chariot's spiritual power, even 10%. That wasn't something he could endure. This seal had thrown the Heavenly Emperor of Supreme Polarity's Tao heart into chaos. He stared at the seal in terror and couldn't help but mutter to himself,